My interest is piqued again. There's no way this artifact Ulgar is speaking of will work as intended if he believes it will only work on legacies younger than the elves. However, maybe it will give me some more insight on what glyph imprints really are in the first place. Fine, let's do it, I reply. Maria and I follow him even further down the winding path, passing more torn-up tree roots and destroyed old structures. Less and less housing turns up, and far more massive holes and slash marks appear. My eyes open wide when I see an enormous ravine where a horrific battle must have taken place. It has to be almost 300 trillion kilometers wide, pretty much the full length of this domain that we've already traveled. As we float over it, massive chunks of an entire tree stick out of it. Branches longer than the entire blue zone each all stack up, and the sky above it is even clear. A light purple hue comes down and sets an eerie mood. While looking up, I see the vague edge of this domain barrier, blocking me from sensing any of the energy above, but I can still see the sky with my eyes. We get to the other edge of the ravine, and what looks like two massive footprints are at its edge. The imagery of Ulgar standing in that very spot, holding off enemies, and their energy shockwaves taking down trees and creating such a massive crater makes my mind spin with potential battle scenarios. Once we pass over this edge, more structures appear, and the black ogre floats down again. They're built in a much different style than the housing from before. These buildings look extremely old and made of black stone. They're also much smaller than the megastructures created to house the astral forms of these enormous ogres spanning hundreds of millions of kilometers. Some of the structures we approach are hardly even 10,000 kilometers tall. They're close to the size of the towers in the green zone of the upper realm. Many look abandoned, but untouched. Even the winding tree roots don't go near this ancient village out of respect. The towers and even old roads and streets are built around the largest structure at the back of this grouping. It's about 10 times larger than most of the other buildings, but it does not have a roof at all. It's an enormous stadium. Now that I take a closer look, many of the fighting facilities in the populated portion of this domain mimic its style. In our compact royal forms, a few hundred kilometers tall, all of these buildings are still quite large. However, the scaling feels similar to a time when we were back on the human world in large cities full of our own races. The only reason it feels small is because hovering behind us, the Black Ogre's foot is larger than this entire civilization. This was passed down, inherited to us by an elder of a light elves clan. I had the honor of knowing them when I was young, but I'm afraid they've all gone through the ascension ritual to keep their minds when their lifespan ran out, or the Imperial's outer guard managed to kill them off. Us black ogres are able to stay in one place. The elves were a traveling race. I feel the density and flow of divine threads in the air shift, and even the trembling mana particles from the innermost part of this ogre's greater form stop producing energy. A wave of black energy disperses into the air as Ulgar deactivates all of his energy forms and floats down to hit the ground with his soul armor-covered feet behind us. He uses a very similar royal ogre form and stands over 5,000 kilometers high still. However, he does not threaten to crush this entire civilization with a single step, maybe just a few doorways if he moves without care. When he walks past us, I can't help but stare. His skin is smooth and jet black, matching his shiny armor. There are white tusks that come out of his mouth on both sides, and the same gray eyes I watched before now stare back at me. What? Have you never seen a black ogre before or something? I shake my head. No, I haven't. The closest I've seen is a blue ogre. We managed to ally with one in the green zone of the upper realm. You look very similar. Ulgar smiles, then grunts and shrugs before walking forward toward the stadium entrance. He only looks more like Torvak in this moment, but I decide to stop making more comments on it for now. Inwardly, I start sifting through the data from over 70 billion worlds in my worldwide connectivity system to try and find any clues to what their common link might be. Ulgar walks through a massive archway above 10 times his own height, and we follow to take in the full view of this abandoned stadium. There are hundreds of rows of seating, and many tunnels around the outer edges that have collapsed after eras of neglect. They look like they lead down under the megastructure, most likely used as holding cells for the entertainers that would perform in the stadium itself. There used to be all kinds of events put on here. battles of the strongest warriors, visiting dark elves, and even wild beasts when the garden was more full of real life. I raise an eyebrow, but Maria responds. Are there no wild monsters anymore? Does everyone just live in these isolated domains? Olger stops in the center of the stadium's middle stage. It's made of the same dark ground as the forest's floor. I believe not. You're the first outsiders I've seen in far too long to even keep track of the time. It was quite a peaceful paradise until the first Blood Imperials started claiming domains and even infecting some of the Dryad's gifts to us after her passing. Olger looks up at the trees, and many dots in my mind begin connecting about why these trees have such a unique, overwhelming primordial aura and complex high-quality ether commands. They were left by a past overseer, but one thing doesn't make sense. What do you mean by First Blood Imperials? Olger sighs. The High Royals. A small amount of demons from the first generation that were present during their overseer's ascension. They're no normal royal demons. Their outer guard may be full of royals, but even I can take them on with enough preparation. If a First Blood attacked this domain, I'd be dead before I realized they arrived. I look back over my shoulder, remembering the destruction of the trees and the landscape, making a mental note that this was truly only caused by some of the Imperial family head's lackeys. When I look back toward the Black Ogre, he's moving his hands in strange patterns, and the air around him is sparkling with lines and dots I know as unreadable high-quality ether commands even if I can't see them. You mentioned both of you came up here after accepting your legacy, right? You're certain it was a dual legacy, and not two solos? Maria and I look at each other, then back at Olger to nod in unison. All right, good. I see no point in wasting more time here. The elves used to use this arena for one other event too. It was to stimulate their glyph imprints. Every new generation would make a big fuss over it, and I even got to witness one mass activation ceremony myself. When they left, we began using this artifact to stimulate our younger generations too. He grins. Don't worry, just stand still. You won't feel a thing. Olger finishes a few more hand signals, then jumps out of the way, floating up and over to the seating area at the side of the stadium. When he sits, he covers over 30 rows of normal seats. His eyes are wide and full of curiosity and hope. The floor below us starts to show countless lines and dots. It even shines with white light like the edges of the archway before that had too many high-quality ether commands activating to stay hidden even in my suppressed state. They all form geometric patterns, connecting in hexagonal runes and circling around the entire floor. There is nothing to sense at first. It just looks like another holographic performance is activating around us. More and more glyphs activate until the entire floor below is bright white. Olger's intrigued eyes stare down at us, slightly distracting me from concentrating, but eventually, the white flashing lights on the floor burst upward to create impenetrable pillars of energy surrounding us. They expand into walls, then even shine bright enough to cover our view of the sky. We begin to float in what feels like an empty white room. The air fills with sparkling lines and dots, flowing through us, swirling around and around countless times. My breathing slows, and I hold both of Maria's hands in mine. We slowly spin, like gravity is no longer acting on us, and we feel as though we're free-falling while staying still in midair. The unsensible glyphs start making more sense to me when they pass by, but only for a split second in my peripheral vision. Like it's an illusion. They even start feeling warm, like each one is giving off energy of some sort. My eyes widen as I stare forward at Maria, and the faint glimmer of recognizable glyphs flash all over her skin in the depths of my consciousness. When I blink again, they're gone. I can't tell if I really saw them now, or if I'm just recalling a memory from the temple within the ravine. As imprints of the glyphs we absorbed from the ravine temple's walls flash in my vision all over Maria's body, they flicker on mine as well. The warmth of the glyphs fills my body, and I start to make out the shapes of many symbols I see. However, they're not in any language I know. This reaction gives me some hope that maybe Olger was wrong and this artifact is capable of activating our glyph imprints despite it not being from an older generation. I even feel the sword in my soul vibrate ever so slightly. It resonates at the same exact time as Maria's sword deep in her soul. Another burst of images floods into my mind as golden-colored glyphs flash on the surface of my soul sword. They flood outward in my primordial aura pathways and coat the inside of my soul for a split second too before fading faster than I can make all of them out. It brings my mind all the way back to the human world, when I saw all of these glyphs for the first time inside the head of an enormous statue of a human, similar to the size I'm standing at right now. My eyes widen, as my soul is bound to Maria's. My perception is hyper-focused after witnessing this, and I see her sword filled with an unfathomable amount of source resin. It sparkles and shines like billions of mirrors reflecting every bit of energy it's ever seen back outward. The weight of this sword becomes so much heavier in my mind looking at it now. There are strange outlines of dots and lines deep within this resin. It is like even more intense ether commands are activating, and they're too complex or too far away for me to see. I do get a definitive feeling though. There is not just a planet bound to that sword. Memories straight from her mind flood into mine, as in the lower realm, she split Kelphar in two, and trapped its core into her blade. However, seeing it now, that planet was far from normal. It's been referenced as an origin world many times before, and after watching Seraphel and Abby's feat of killing Lucian, I now know that planet was the birthplace of the last wyvern who has now accepted their whole race's legacy, and it was storing a dryad's legacy as well. A dark elf and a scarlet clan berserker were left on that planet too. The core of this planet was no normal noble-grade world. It looks like it has a unique legacy stored away in it, yet I have no idea what race it could be from. The warmth in this room continues flooding into our bodies, but after the initial shock, it doesn't grow any more extreme. I actually begin to feel the temperature of the room dropping. All of the glyphs that flow through us start coming out the other side of our bodies in a weakened state, with a weight of failure in their souls. It's like the waves of high-quality ether commands have a consciousness of their own, and are realizing they're not strong enough to finish the awakening. The more glyphs swirling around the room, the more depressed it starts to feel. Maria and I float back down to touch the floor and smile, putting out waves of intent using royal vibrations, and allowing our primordial aura to flood outward about 100,000 kilometers, the size of this arena's stage. The calming aura is infused with a thank you to whatever is powering this array, and the fact that we're not upset somehow lightens the mood. Many of the desperate glyphs dissolve into our primordial aura and flow back into our bodies. A lot of them fall back toward the floor. The walls stop glowing bright white and revert to pillars again, then fade away entirely. The floor swirls with many circles and patterns for a few more seconds. They feel as though they're watching us with curiosity, and even mentally waving goodbye while falling back toward a single point in the center of the floor. When I look around, the presence of many high-quality ether commands becomes very clear. The domains shielding high above us is the most dense pocket of commands I can see. They're no longer specks of random, invisible energy. I'm able to see spinning arrays and logical connections to the commands as they block outside forces and keep what is inside invisible and unsensible to outsiders. Without Ulgur inviting us in, we never would have been able to see this domain civilization. At the same time, I can start to see how one could slip through these barriers, and Ember's soul tie becomes slightly stronger in my subconscious again. Most potent of all, Maria and I turn our heads to Ulgur with wide-open eyes. He's covered head to toe in high-quality commands of his own. They look much different than the ones on the barrier above us, and much different than the strange semi-conscious arrays that were just flowing around us too. Maria and I let go of each other's hands next, and look down at our own palms. I can feel flickering high-quality ether glyphs starting to form, and my soul energy core is being stimulated every time they do. However, for some reason, my celestial energy is not pure enough to fully activate what I'm envisioning. I can perceive and understand this new power, but still do not have a strong enough soul to activate it myself. No matter how many times I try to visualize the imprints on our skin, or on our swords, I can't tap into that same feeling again. Ulgur's voice echoes through the empty stadium. Did it work? I've never seen it use up so much power before. That was like 100 awakening ceremonies activated at once. His grin is wide on his face, and his eyes filled with light. Maria shakes her head. Yes and no. It looks like it helped our issue of not being able to safely comprehend high-quality commands, but there's no way I can wield them yet. She stares into the ogre's jet black armor, as each one is filled to the brim with extremely intricate arrays. They flow perfectly with its royal vibrations, tethered together to make each one stronger. And his unique primordial aura holds everything together like glue. Seeing them all gel together like this instantly raises my primordial aura proficiency, as I understand how it's used on a deeper level just witnessing it naturally at work. I mentally compare this to the horrific mental attacks I received when staring into the trees outside the barrier, and realize once again the dryads that left them were on an entirely different level. I'm nowhere close to understanding their complexity yet. Are there any allied domains you know of that have older awakening artifacts? I think it's worked as well as it could. Our legacy is just older than the elves. Ulger almost falls down the stadium seats as he's physically taken aback by my words. What do you mean your legacy is older than the elves? Maybe there's something tucked away in the forgotten pockets of space in the lower realm. But you've spoken of the other zones. There is no feasible way one could be left in these higher planes of compressed space without one of the royal family heads guarding it with their lives. You could not possibly have found one. Looking into his soul now, I can see much deeper. Pretty much all of my suspicions of him possibly being an ally of the demons have finally gone away. This ogre is truly on the side of the mana-based lifeforms, and has nothing but kind intent toward us. I let out a sigh of relief and respond. There are no longer any royal family heads in the zones below. We killed them all. The fire and ice around our bodies flicker with intensity, and it flows into our primordial auras that have expanded quite a bit during the ceremony. Seeing how Ulger's many energies blend with his aura allows us to start doing the same. Despite the black ogre's overwhelming size, our gravity increases many times over, and it feels like we are looking at this true cord purple monster as equals as he responds. Humans managed to kill royal demons? Is that what you're telling me right now? Even if you have managed a royal transformation yourselves, the raw talent gap, it wouldn't be possible. He thinks to himself, scanning us up and down while comparing our auras to his. Yet, what he doesn't know is that we're not borrowing any stats from my links of loyalty right now. This is one of the weakest states we can show ourselves in. I nod. Yes, and the legacy we managed to obtain. It's one the Imperials tried to hide away from any race to ever find it. To properly stimulate it, I have a feeling we're going to need something far older than what you have here. I look up, probably far older than even the primordial garden itself. Ulger's pupils shrink, and all of his curiosity and cheery attitude drain out of his face. So the originator's legacy is real? I always believed that race before the Dryads era was nothing but a myth. What do you know about the originators? I reply, it's extremely rare for me to hear any mention of this race. The only places I've ever seen confirmed text from their language were on the human world, Kelfer, and in the ravine. Odds are, this so-called creator's legacy does come from them. Ulger takes a few deep breaths in and out to calm himself before replying. Well, like I said, until now I really only thought they were myths. I've never seen one myself, nor have I ever met another who has claimed to meet an originator in the flesh. Though, plenty of the Dryads' oldest texts mention a race in the overseer's seat before them. The black ogre calmly gets down off the seats of the stadium, then begins walking toward the exit. If what you say is true, we'll need an awakening artifact much older. Older than what any of our allies even have in their domains. Maria steps forward to follow first. You mentioned there were griffins and mammoths nearby. You don't think they have connections to other domains with the artifacts we need? Ulger shakes his head slowly while stepping through the archway. No, I don't think so. The griffins arrived after us. They use a unique artifact that was created by their own race to awaken glyph imprints. The mammoths use a fairly unique array too. It was left to them by a hydra that was forcefully thrust into the zone a while back. Them and a number of domains received artificially created legacies from the hydras and tortoises. I can't help but recall the memories I absorbed from the hydra in the blue zone, and the fact that Ember thrust many of them upward before the amplifier holder died and the memories cut out. However, something else from his words makes me question something even more interesting. What do you mean the Griffins have their own unique artifacts? They were never overseers. A chuckle comes back from the ogre, but he doesn't stop walking. I follow after him as he replies. I think you're misinterpreting what glyph imprints really are, or what legacies as a whole can do. They're really only the compressed will of another living being. Some happen to hold the weight of individuals, others hold the weight of entire civilizations, and the greatest legacies of all contain the will of whole races. The stronger the race, the more potential a legacy has, and the more complex their high-quality ether potential can be. As Maria and I stop beneath the archway, about to leave this arena, we turn back and feel a slight mental pull from the floor. It's the collection of glyphs, saying one last goodbye. They seem infatuated with us for some reason, and I can feel many souls peering up at me now that I take into account Ulger's most recent words. I feel as though thousands of ancient light elves are staring up at me with eyes full of awe. I smile and send a pulse of goodwill in my vibrations and primordial aura back. Ulger continues speaking as we turn back and follow him through this abandoned village again. In the earlier eras of the system, it was much easier to break the mental hurdle to gain access to these imprints. But now, it is almost like the system itself has grown tired. It cannot grant just anyone access to the higher limits of its usage. One has to inherit these system commands from those that used its will when it was young. The narrative has been stolen. If detected on Amazon, report the infringement. My eyes flicker with interest, as I've never heard anyone refer to the system as a living entity. He continues, while the past overseer races do have the advantage of holding the largest percent of its will at once, and are able to create extremely high-quality legacies, that does not mean other lesser races cannot make their own. Look at me, my race has never claimed the overseer's seat, but I wield royal vibrations. The black ogres do not have any legacies to leave behind yet, as the smaller elven one we've accepted is more than enough to sustain us. All of this confirms many of my theories. I send messages back and forth with Maria via telepathy to discuss what I've learned. The acceptance of the Scarlet Clan's aura into Raven's Blades on Kelfer was some minor legacy transfer, and so was the Dark Elf's bow that Ari accepted. It seems as though Ava's intuition was some kind of minor elven legacy as well. However, now that I think of this deeper, I begin falling down quite the strange rabbit hole of thought. They are all from much lower zones, so these legacies are weaker, impacting their souls far less than the ones imprinted on ours. Yet, this new sensation of manipulating and sensing soul ties has opened my mind to the fact that I'm connected to everything and everyone that is linked to my Rising Emperor system. Of course, my soul bond with Maria, my sword, and Ember are the strongest. Yet, the generals have extremely strong bonds too. The commanders' and administrators' bonds are weaker, and so are the knights. But they all shape my soul in their own unique way. So have every demon's soul absorbed into my armor in the ravine, and every memory I absorbed into my pool of consciousness. The monsters I blood-bonded to my mana-based armor in the lower realm, their essence still to this day adds power to my stats. Even the system's experience points, the levels I've gained. They too have built me up to be a stronger human. Every bit of energy absorbed has its own weight on my soul. While extremely weak compared to the energy purity I'm facing now, and so convoluted and impossible to individually track with my current mind, I can't help but draw a line to connect these variables. Their wills may not be strong enough to physically feel, but everything feels like it is a legacy to a degree. It appears as though it is far more impactful when the one that has created this legacy willingly gives it over to the receiver. I feel my sword pulse in my chest, snapping me out of my thoughts, and feel the two white orbs of light that were amplifiers for overseer races resonating with my ideas deep within the depths of my soul weapon's core. Then, something clicks, and Ember's face appears in my thoughts. Instantly, I start to grow dizzy with ringing in my ears, and golden light covers my vision as images flash through my mind, but I catch myself before I fall. Even though my final thoughts were erased, I still grin ear to ear. When I look at my surroundings, everything seems so much more clear and obvious. We've walked all the way out of the ancient village, stopping at the edge of the Black Ogre's territory. There is a massive invisible shield that dives down into the ground and rises upward into the sky. It is the other side of this domain's barrier. Ulgur raises his hands. Even though our allies may not have the artifacts necessary for your legacy awakening, our enemies most likely will. The Imperials have strategically taken over domains with the oldest civilizations. The further back the Overseer's legacies go, the stronger they are. So, odds are one of their territories may have something that can at least stimulate your glyph imprints a little more. Maria looks back over her shoulder, spotting the massive destruction that filled almost half of this domain. Are you sure it's safe? If that's what only 3 outer guards managed, you really think you can take on an entire domain's worth? Ulgur shrugs. If I didn't think I could, I wouldn't be surveying the primordial garden so often. The only reason it took so much effort to fend them off in here is because I had to hold back not to injure my younger citizens. If it's on their turf, I don't mind killing others in the crossfire. I watch the high-quality ether commands start spinning around his body, and the activation of his greater and astral forms start to trigger. I call out to stop him before he commits. Wait, if you don't mind, could we have a try at opening the domain? Ulgur turns back at me with a confused look on his face, but I mentally share the thought process of total connectivity I just experienced with Maria. Her eyes start to widen, and her aura's depth grows as she stares up at the invisible domain barrier. She's starting to see what I see too. Yeah, let us try. Ulgur chuckles to himself and steps back, deactivating the arrays and form upgrades he was about to set into motion. I don't sense a single high-quality glyph activated in either of you two, but sure, if you're that confident, I won't stop you from trying. I stare up at the domain barrier. Moments earlier, when we entered this place, I couldn't even sense that it was here. Now, I can perceive billions of shifting arrays and groupings of glyphs moving together to create countless pathways. Not all of the symbols directly translate to actual words in my mind, but when I look at them all together, I can feel what each one does. With Maria's mind connected to mine, deciphering everything at the same exact time, we bounce theories and ideas off each other at an extremely fast rate, and everything continues to become more and more clear. Ulgur steps far back, watching us with curiosity and skepticism, as there are no glyphs activating on our bodies at all. It is not an illusion or perceptive trick. We really aren't summoning any high-quality ether commands. The thing is, we really don't have to. Everything needed to open up this barrier is already laid out in front of us. I raise my hands and place them against the invisible wall. Maria does the same, and we flood it with our primordial aura wrapped with layers of royal intent. At first, nothing at all visibly changes. All of the spinning and active commands go on as if they don't even notice our presence. However, once a large enough portion of the barrier is saturated with our aura, about 100,000 kilometers high, we begin allowing celestial energy to leak out of our palms. It is not random. In fact, there are very specific glyphs we send them toward, to pass through a series of arrays and compact them tighter and tighter together. The bright blue and red celestial energy that pours out of us in dense streams gets crushed and compacted down into hair-thin lines of higher potency ether. Even the excess high ratios of mana get filtered out. It is like we're putting up a temporary offering, risking a portion of our souls. Without the mental connections I made after feeling my glyph imprints be stimulated by that elven village's artifact, I wouldn't have been able to understand this. Right now, we're allowing this domain to use our energy, like we're creating a miniature legacy. The one accepting it just happens to be an unconscious grouping of preset ether commands. It takes almost a full 10% of our soul energy cores to pour outward before I can tell it's enough. Both Maria and I cut off the outward flow, but stay in total concentration while manipulating our primordial aura to mentally communicate with the complex glyphs. It is impossible to directly shift or activate them like I witnessed Ulgur do by force when we entered this domain, but I have the perception and intuition to understand that we can see far deeper into these glyphs than the ancient Black Ogre. In addition to this, I can feel the same aura of admiration and respect pouring out of some of these glyphs, just like the elven artifacts from before. They all start to spin and activate on their own, creating the outline of a small white archway in front of us. I can't sense the energy readings themselves, but I can perceive everything they're doing with immense detail. My depth of knowledge and understanding of every array's intricate need grows with every passing second. Layers of the domain barrier fold into each other, deactivating soul suppression arrays, visual blocking sensors, even strange space-warping glyphs deactivate thousands at a time. A perfect hole in the domain opens up and reveals the outside primordial garden in all its glory. Wide smiles are on our faces, but Ulger's skepticism has only grown stronger. How? How is that possible? You didn't summon a single glyph. You! He murmurs to himself, trying to figure out what just happened. But Maria and I have already started walking through. You didn't even have to activate your greater forms. Far more energy is necessary to brute force open a domain. This one is hardwired to only accept Black Ogre's commands. Stolen content warning. This tale belongs on Royal Road. Report any occurrences elsewhere. He follows behind us, leaving the elven village and the rest of his territory with a puzzled look and an inconsistent stride. When we turn back around, the doorway we've created starts sinking back down and the barrier reforms in its place. In a matter of seconds, all evidence of the Black Ogre's domain disappears. It's like there is perfect imagery of an untouched forest where I'm positive there were structures and craters in the ground moments ago. All of the glyphs and arrays finish spinning, and the celestial energy we poured into the barrier floods back through the same high-quality ether commands that were used to trigger this action. They're stretched out and decompressed, turned back into medium-quality ether before our eyes. The energy is pure white, though. Our own natural auras have been separated out. The red and blue particles float in the air within our primordial aura and royal vibrations. The barrier's commands start to push out our consciousness, and we pull all of this energy back into our souls. It's like they're giving us our pseudo-legacy right back. In fact, I can feel something extra flowing through it. This mass of ether commands very easily could have taken and assimilated this energy for itself, but it acknowledged our wills and gave the energy right back. My body and depths of my soul hum with a satisfied feeling. A rush of euphoria follows. Then my fingers and toes start tingling with a sensation I haven't felt in a while. This is energy exhaustion. A light ringing sounds in my inner ear, but I clasp Maria's hand next to mine to cycle our celestial energy through each other. And the feeling fades. We're far stronger, and our eyes have opened to more of high-quality ether's secrets. I recall seeing Ulger open the domain and don't remember him receiving any energy back when it closed. If this is the case and he has not created a relationship with these glyphs like we just did, I can assume that is what fighting an enemy with high-quality ether commands would be like. One would have to use up large portions of soul bonds in order to activate glyphs, with no guarantee they ever return. My head turns to the side and out of my thoughts when I hear a buzzing and clicking sound start to become louder than the soft hum in my mind. It's a stray swarm of insects. Inside the domain, I didn't see a single one. The forest was calm, yet now they move down through tree branches toward us like we're fresh meat. My vision becomes overwhelmed by the vast amount of commands pouring into my consciousness. Even without any of my greater forms activated, I can't block out the fact that I can now perceive everything around me in greater clarity. Maria is frozen with wide eyes too. Ulger is the only one able to move, knowing what to do in this situation. A burst of black aura erupts out of him as his base greater form explodes outward. Then, the air's density of divine threads all pull in toward his core as his astral form takes control of the atmosphere. Primordial aura and his royal vibrations revert back to the strength we felt when first encountering him in this forest. But one thing is very different. Covering every bit of his massive energy form, I see white high-quality ether commands spinning and draining pure ether from his soul energy core. I couldn't perceive where the energy was coming from or how it was activating before, but now it's all becoming clear and logical. He pulls a machete from his back, and it too pulls pure white high-quality ether from his core. When he swings his blade, letting out a crescent of energy at the attackers, a portion of his soul is lost forever. Yet, in exchange, dozens of insects are shattered to dust. Far away, high up on a tree's branch, the crescent slices a lizard in two as it was eyeing us from afar. Its two halves fall from a great height down nearby. Ulger puts his weapon back in its sheath, and he walks through the shattered mist of monsters he's killed. Many automated glyphs light up all over his energy form, and I see what he called glyph imprints finally working in front of my eyes. They drain the excess high-quality ether and even fractured ether commands back into the Black Ogre's soul. The amount of energy he sacrificed in order to kill his enemies was less than what he gained. In a matter of seconds, my theory came true. I look away from the ogre and can't help but take in the complex patterns pulsing out of the tree's bark again. I can see their original dark brown color now without the blinding white light shielding my vision. Yet there are still an absurd amount of ether commands infused in the tree. It is a thick layering, and they range from projecting shielding commands to natural atmosphere energy-absorbing glyphs, to countless that are infused deeper into the tree's core I still can't comprehend. The deeper I look inside, the more my soul starts to heat up and my mind grows fuzzy. I'm forced to release my primordial aura outward again to create a bubble of protection. For some reason, the deeper inward I look, the more these commands are bonded with ancient primordial aura of their own. My eyes shift all over the forest as the sensation of being watched from every side by these strange trees returns. Ulger looks back at us, as we're tens of thousands of times smaller than him, but our primordial auras somehow tower over his. You two are some strange creatures. He pauses, then looks back into the forest. A smile creeps onto his face, and a gleam of ambition shows in his gray eyes. I won't ask you how you did that because by the looks of it, you don't have any idea either. Come on, I'll take you to the closest Imperial's domain. There's one I've been working on weakening for quite a while now. I just haven't had the right opportunity to commit. If you two can break through their protection barrier without my help, I could save a large amount of vital energy for the actual battle. In the lower realm, more and more crisis events are popping up all over the outer ring of the galaxy. At first, only a few thousand bright white demons were spotted, but this soon turned into hundreds of thousands, and even millions, attacking star systems. They're being strategic. I don't know where they're getting this data, but it's obvious they're reclaiming the highest grade worlds first. Especially the ones we've recently cleared Vermilion and Morvale forces out from. Alvaron shares. A live chat of the other administrators, commanders, and knights all listen in. A few of the highest-ranked leaders in the Galactic Trade Commission are invited to listen too. These are rulers that held tens and up to hundreds of planets each before being connected to the worldwide connectivity system. A great number of them are from the star system of elites living on noble-grade worlds, while others have unique skills or energy forms that put them on par with noble-grade talent. Over the years during the realm wave, order and a solidified hierarchy have been created. Bree accesses the data, pulling 1% of borrowed stats now that the rising Emperor and Empress have finished using all of it. In the last hour, the number of connected planets to the worldwide connectivity system has increased by over 10 times. With over 63 billion additional worlds flooding in, the opportunity to trade luminite crystals and create instant transport points in a new massive sector of the galaxy opens up. This is instantly coordinated, and Knights of the Crimson Army are sent out to strictly scan the highest-risk planets and recently attacked solar systems. Many elites volunteer to help with data collection too. Fisher and Lydia are both in the same solar system, but on different planets, far across the galaxy, exploring an old war ground. There are dozens of first-class and noble-grade demonic worlds abandoned or even destroyed into pieces, orbiting a white sun in deep space. They stop their exploration early without much annoyance. There are thousands of solar systems like this one, and the artifacts they're collecting for Bree, Monk, and Alvaron's research are no different from their usual finds. Fisher, the true Cord Water Mage, uses a fast travel perk to teleport next to Lydia across the solar system when an emergency message hits their status. He's grown taller, and his aura is far more rich with true confidence over these last few years. His new soul armor covers his body head to toe, and shimmers blue just like his eyes and hair. Out from his soul storage, he pulls out a bright blue blade. All over its edges, ripples of water seem to move about, and the outlines of serpents swimming in an ocean look as though they're waiting to be released out of the sea that dwells in his weapon. Looks like we finally get to do something other than trash collection on these dead worlds. There are some real enemies out there that the knights aren't going to be able to handle. His eyes gleam with excitement, and an aura of intimidation floods out from his body. It vibrates with the sensation noble demons give off. After killing so many from the leftover armies in the lower realm, this hunter's will has grown strong enough to exert his own vibrations on the space around him. Lydia, the white ice mage with a dense true yellow core of her own, responds with a cold stare. More war isn't a good thing. Look how many have already died. Whatever these things are, they have no remorse yet they're intelligent. They're calculative but can't be reasoned with. It's the worst of both worlds. The two stand in silence, staring up at the empty sky on this desolate demonic world, watching coordinates for the strongest demons popping up in their minds as the knights and elites map out the galactic battlefield. Then also watching the destruction of thousands of worlds, all with billions of system users on them that they've already failed to save. Lydia's eyes are still dead and cold, but deep in their centers a glint of life is still left. She looks over at Fisher, as in the lower realm, he is the only one capable of understanding the level of power available at her fingertips. The two have grown much closer over the years of this realm wave. Her soul armor gives off a white frosty mist, similar to Fisher's. It was crafted by Bree with only the best materials found in the lower realm, imbued with low-quality ether that shouldn't naturally occur anywhere but in the green zone and above. When she pulls her soul sword out from storage, its thin, curved katana-shaped trails with a white mist just like her armor. Yet, as she swings it across her body, the illusion of a white tiger's growl feels like it is splitting space where it soars through. Let's make a bet. I think I can kill more of these demonic soldiers than you, she says in a far more playful tone than her previous words. A smile creeps onto her face, and the air pressure shifts as her own noble-level vibrations start to pour out of her body. Both of them start pulling borrowed stats and responding to the emergency pings in their mental systems, and the planet beneath their feet starts cracking into pieces as it cannot withstand the pressure of their auras. Flashes of white light are left behind on the crumbling planet as they activate their greater forms and teleport to the front lines. In the green zone, Raven and Ari peacefully stand in the central tower of the Mensa Citadel. Far less time has passed after the realm wave in this zone, but over the last 10 days these two have fallen into a routine together. It consists of sparring to train and keep sharp, talking with the new citizens of the Citadel, exploring the zone while cultivating the dense green threads in the air, and spending leisurely time together in peace after winning their battles in the war for the Green Zone. The entire Citadel has been completely renovated to accommodate their new building projects, and there are many transfers of the demon-owned towers over to mana-based lords to expand businesses and stimulate the economy. More sturdy, fast travel connections have been added to the Ellipsia Citadel nearby. Both of these floating cities are far closer to the empty void of green clouds where old citadels used to be in the past. New lords that ascend often appear in these pockets of the zone, so accommodations have been built out for all kinds of races. The automated systems are still active, testing for intelligence and general strength or threat level. The wild beasts are all sent to the Grand Citadel to live in the massive lowest tier of the three-tiered structure built by Ava, managed by Zashin, a white griffin, and a council of intelligent elite warriors that all used to fight in the final rounds of the old Grand Citadel's tournaments. They all live in an elite's-only headquarters at the top of the Citadel, but the middle section, where hundreds of millions of lords live now and carry out business, has been directly connected to many smaller hovering trade centers, the fortress itself, and many more fast travel connections have been added to make transfers to Mensa and Ellipsia easier. Warning signals activate in all of the Citadel's command centers, but the first ones to actually feel the aura of their enemies are the dual-wielding swordswoman and the archer who has been training an army beneath Mensa for a few days now. Both of them are geared up head to toe in brand new soul armor too. With celestial-grade craftsmanship available to them as a borrowed skill, all of the soul weapons, raw materials, and previously unusable medium-quality ether fragments can now be infused into their soul weapons and utilized to create armor. They match with dark-colored lightweight armor that glows with white shimmers of light. A unique aura pours out of both of them, as they've come to realize their place in this galaxy. Seeing the immense growing control they are a part of as the influence of the rising emperor grows in the lower realm builds up their confidence and will as generals more and more every day. Images of the attack on the outer solar systems have been transmitted up to them, But it is a frightening surprise when waves of high noble vibrations start pouring into the green zone too. Both of them instantly open the roof of the central tower and float up to get a better view with their own eyes. Dents in space are left behind as they kick off the air, flying away from the citizens of the zone. They send messages to the warlords and Ava that are further away of what they see. Borrowed stats start flooding into their bodies. Raven pulls out her swords, expands to a massive greater form, then disappears as a unique aura of noble vibrations, divine threads, and soul energy cloaks her being. Black, white, and purple spirit hands come out of Ares' back as he pulls his bow out from his soul storage. The sight of countless rifts opening up on the horizon of the green zone is an incredibly eerie sight. Bright white demons pour out of them, walking forward through the air without emotions. Many of them somehow still have true yellow cores. Dense white ether covers their bodies and makes it so the zone's gravity does not affect them. Others pull in enormous amounts of green clouds and break through to green cores without flinching or slowing their strides. Pluto watches the countless Imperial soldiers leave the purple throne and flood into the demonic realm. He begins receiving the same messages as the knights, commanders, and generals, watching geopoints light up all over the galaxy. There are videos and energy scans coming from the knights and elites of every system playing in his mind. The glowing white demons themselves do not give off any scannable readings, but the dents in space they make and the scale of destruction they leave behind provide enough data to estimate their power. They're like nothing he's ever seen before. No noble demons from the strongest army generals in the demonic realm have ever shown strength like that. They are cracking planets in half just from floating by in the vicinity. Single attacks from their soul weapons, and some even just open palms, are enough to explode stars. It's obvious the ones here on the demon's home planet are holding back. There is something here that they cannot destroy. Pluto borrows 1% of the borrowed stats he has available to him, and a celestial-grade stealth skill. His Earth Dragon swoops down into the Vermilion's empty castle, activates the same borrowed stealth skill, and the two of them fly high into the sky, away from the chaos. The two begin doing visual scans of their own to get a better idea of the threat at hand. There are 3 demons that do not participate in the slaughter of demonic citizens at all. They do not act like emotionless robots either. They only float above sectors of the demonic realm with their arms crossed, watching the destruction below. One has a massive shield on its back, another is covered in daggers, and the third has a sharp, long sword. Pluto cannot actually tell the energy density difference, as the shielding techniques on all of these demons are made of high-quality ether commands that not even they can manipulate. However, there is a strange aura about them that he cannot help but be wary of. Even their high noble vibrations feel slightly off, like they're on the verge of becoming royals. More and more images start popping up in his mind, and he sees a few dozen strange outliers in the millions of sightings posted on the worldwide connectivity system. A small number of these mindless soldiers are stronger than the rest, and they seem far more conscious and intelligent than the others. This information is quickly spread through the higher-ups channels. Even Raven and Ari take time to respond back to the claims as they soar through the green zone toward thousands of approaching high noble bright white demons. About 15 of them show the same characteristics as Pluto describes. Their soul weapons feel heavier, and their vibrations seem far more dense and full of true confidence. In the highest zone of the upper realm, a purple-cored demon sits on the edge of an incredibly large tree stump. Stolen from its rightful author, this tale is not meant to be on Amazon. Report any sightings. There are countless thin line circles that spread out from its center, billions in fact, showing that before it was cut down. This tree lived more years than most living beings can begin to comprehend. Between each growth ring, the distance spreads millions of kilometers, making the tree itself over 1,000,000,000 kilometers wide. There are small sprouts where its internal energy continues to produce life and tries to grow new branches out from its severed trunk. But it's clear these are trimmed and killed off occasionally to keep it from growing again. Around this tree in the forest, there are thousands of saplings that are a few trillion kilometers thick each. Here, massive structures of an old civilization still stand. Many of the structures are abandoned and falling apart, but they are all still very rich with high-quality ether commands and automated arrays from the past. The domain walls of this specific territory are extremely large, spanning hundreds of times greater than most of the outer territories. It is in the center of the primordial garden, after all, and used to be where a dryad's sanctuary prospered. The imperial family head stares off into the primordial garden as countless wisps of ascended demons float through the air all around him. He speaks out loud to himself, but the many demons that praise him listen to his words attentively. They've managed to kill Lucian and Samir. That is a shame. I kind of liked those two. They were excellent guard dogs. Muffled laughter comes out from the swirling white shadows of demons that group around their king. Even more start flooding out of the thick forest around, as it's not every day the family head speaks or even acknowledges the existence of demons that no longer have their purple cores. The true purple core in the family head's chest is fully saturated. The high-quality ether commands filling his body are so bright that, even when not activated, he lights up their entire domain with a hot glow. Countless unique glyph imprints cover his cores, allowing him to use far more divine threads than he naturally should be able to. None of his subordinates with purple cores are allowed to live in this domain. The high royal vibrations that fill the air would be damaging to their psyche if exposed for too long. However, in his current suppressed state, a short visit from the First Bloods is safe. He mentally sends messages to his strongest subordinates but speaks his words out loud for those that have gathered around to listen in interest. We have intruders in the primordial garden. Send out warnings to all of the outer guard posts. Have them survey the open wilderness. They couldn't have made it far. The Creator's legacy I personally sealed in the Scion Zone's prison was broken into. That is a fact. However, even if they claimed it, there is no way to truly awaken it without the key beneath my feet. Without their glyphs activated, they're as weak as Blue Zone lifeforms as far as I'm concerned. Don't hold back. Grant permission to all of the outer guards to kill on sight. Then, report here to my domain. I will be speaking with the Overseer, then we'll give personal orders for all of you First Bloods. We're going to follow through and seal off the lower zones. The primordial garden will be the only remaining eternal paradise. The Imperial family head severs this mental connection, and many domains that are cloaked but nearby in the purple zone all begin activating the exit archways to visit other nearby domains and alert the outer guards. All of the white mist-like demons in the air begin excitedly spinning and flying around in circles. Many yell out with excitement, as events like this rarely ever occur. The Imperial family head scans them all with extremely calculative eyes. Deep down, they are purple, but they are covered and tethered to so many high-quality ether commands that they appear purple-white to those without high royal-grade perception. He shows a fake smile, then stands up from the edge of the tree stump, turning his back on his followers, and walks toward its center. Reality bends and wavers while so many ether commands activate that the entire domain shudders. He slips behind an invisible veil of space once he walks far enough away, and his existence is deleted from the zone. All of the ascended demons disperse back into the thick forest of the domain. Ulgar floats forward after killing the swarm of insects and absorbing the white mist they left behind. Maria and I jump upward and follow him away from the domain barrier of the black ogres that just closed and left it invisible to the rest of the primordial garden. As we float through the small bits of residue left behind in this mist, I don't exactly sense any usable ether readings, but it does feel warm. It is similar to the hot feeling that briefly stimulated my glyph imprints while using that elven artifact, but so much weaker. I can't even feel the glyph outlines at all. Beside this feeling, the primordial aura pushing down on us from all the trees around us feels even stronger than it was before. It's like they're targeting us now, or maybe it's just that they notice us more because of the small stimulation we experienced. Whatever the truth may be, I feel my depth of strength and understanding growing exponentially with every passing second. Both mine and Maria's bubbles of primordial aura reach over 40 billion kilometers outward, almost double what it did before. This additional volume, plus the increasing mental proficiency, is pulling in far more stray celestial energy and divine threads from the environment. Our minds are churning with new information, staring up at the green leaves that flicker with intricate patterns beyond our mental capacity, and thick tree trunks that hold auras capable of shattering our minds and souls if we look too deep. The clouds of dying lizards and insects that Ulgar occasionally kills in front of our path spew fractured high-quality ether commands directly into our clouds of consciousness to better understand. While all this happens, our purple cores become more saturated, our soul energy cores pool with more celestial energy, and we cycle it to make it more and more pure. All of the chaos around us actually makes the refining process even more efficient. Every tree we pass, more power flows into us, and my comparison to the lifeforms in the blue zone, cyan zone, green zone, and lower realm becomes further and further apart. Our royal vibrations grow tighter and stronger, approaching a new wavelength as we realize we are shifting to become even higher lifeforms. Everything around us is so beautiful. Every new glyph I see fills me with endorphins and a rush of new power, and the fact that we're in our base royal forms with a protective layer of primordial aura makes it so much more exciting because it's clear we're only scratching the surface. We're sharing another trance-like experience, but this one is self-induced. Hundreds of enormous trees pass us by as we get lost in the moment, following Ulgar while he destroys dozens of swarms. A bright flash of white in the sky is what breaks us out of our daydreams. Get down and don't say a word. We have company. Echoes through our minds while the black ogre dives down toward the forest floor. We follow and hit the ground right behind him a few billion kilometers away. With the panic in his voice, I immediately assume the worst and believe one of these Imperial outer guards he spoke of has arrived. However, the vibrations pouring out of him don't only scream fear, they have compassion and trust in them too. The flash of white light lands right in front of Ulgar, but the ogre doesn't reach for his weapons. Instead, he clasps his fists together and gives a slight bow. My eyes focus and a familiar body shape materializes. A majestic white griffin bows its head back, but its yellow eagle eyes are still sharp when it looks past Ulgar and yells in a raspy tone. State your business, bringing outsiders near the white griffin domain. Our agreement was to ally with you and your underlings, nothing more. The author's narrative has been misappropriated. Report any instances of the story on Amazon. The griffin has royal vibrations of his own, and a primordial aura that fills out his entire bright white astral form. The ogre and griffin are of very similar size and power on the surface, but when my eyes try to make sense of the spinning arrays and glyph patterns on its body, they're entirely different than the ogre's. Not a single symbol matches, and I remember Ulgar saying they used a unique technique to awaken their imprints. Whatever I'm seeing, it's the result of a white griffin legacy. Ulgar smiles back. We were just on our way out, Axel. I noticed you were surveying nearby and decided it'd be best to warn you of what I'm about to do. The griffin's gaze grows sharper, and its claws grip the ground tighter. If it's war you want, I don't recommend it. I may not be able to kill you one-on-one, but we have numbers. Ulgar laughs and throws his hands up. Come on. Not war on you. He turns back to look at us. I found a couple of barrier smiths. They're able to crack domain barriers without setting off the automated systems, and in just a matter of seconds. The griffin's eyes widen. War on the Imperials, then? Ulgar nods, but the griffin only flaps its wings and flies away. He doesn't say another word, and disappears out of my range of view. What was that? He didn't look like the trusted ally you made him out to be. I call out. Ulgar turns, changing directions slightly. He's just protective. It's a complicated time in the primordial garden. Both of us only have one domain left. It is only natural to fight back when part of our agreement is tested. Ulgar floats up in the air, but he speaks again once reaching a height right below the branches. If you thought he was uncooperative, wait until you see Vardon. It would probably be best if you stayed a tree or two away from me until this next meeting passes. The fiery mammoths can be a bit temperamental. Ulgar takes a step forward and begins flying through the air again. Nerves and excitement both rush through me. Images of a massive war starting in the zones below me are flashing through my subconscious, but the majority of my mind is still fascinated by the griffin's glyphs. Just thinking about it, I get a prickly feeling all over the outside of my soul. We move through the trees even faster than before, and stay further back. My mind is racing and expanding. It is so easy to fall back into a trance while Maria experiences the same bliss-like feeling right by my side. The more I adapt to the zone around me, the more vast and unexplainable it becomes. It's like I'm falling deeper and deeper into a well of understanding that I need to learn more of to possibly claw my way out. It is addicting, yet so satisfying. The prickling sensation begins to grow warm as I start to relate some of the glyphs I saw on that griffin to a few I recognize from the elven artifact. Then flashbacks from the creator's legacy begin pouring back into my mind. They only come in glimpses, and every time they do, they're either impossible to understand or followed by a flash of golden light that deletes my memories of comprehending it. I grit my teeth and dig deeper each time because I feel like I'm getting so close, but there's just something missing. I know all of the pieces of information floating in my mind make sense. They're just fractured and not in the correct order. I need a strong enough glue to hold everything together. Just as I feel like I'm about to reach another glimpse of vital information, my whole body starts to feel hot. Reflexively, a smile grows on my face, as this is even hotter than the elven artifact made me feel. However, Maria's sharp thoughts pierce into me and break me out of my trance. At first, I'm a bit aggravated, but when I see her activating her mana-based ice goddess form in front of me, creating an ice wall and pulling me backward, I realize this is a very different situation than I thought it was. I activate my mana-based greater form too and grow to be about 100,000 kilometers tall. We both lurch backward and curve around the trunk of one of the nearest primordial trees. The ice wall does practically nothing, instantly engulfed in orange, almost rust-colored flames. The sound of a mammoth fills my ears, and it even echoes into the deepest parts of my psyche. Even though it's not in my visual range, I see the outline of a ferocious ancient mammoth standing in our path. Its royal vibrations clash with mine deep in my soul. Maria's pool with mine deep in our consciousness, and we stay awake. The bubble of primordial aura blocked a lot of the blunt force, but the heat itself is filled with high-quality ether commands that actually give off energy we can't ignore. Unlike the lizards and insect swarms, these ones are actually damaging us somehow. I feel a glint of Ulger's vibrations start to fight back, and he yells loudly, but the mammoth's roar is overwhelming him. It's hard to tell at all what is happening here. I didn't even see this beast coming. It's easily 5 times taller than the black ogre, and by the pressure being emitted in the air, it feels like it's at least that much stronger too. Options run through my mind of how to get out of this alive, but I feel my intuition pointing to something deep inside my soul. My sleeping sword grows restless, and ripples with a faint but familiar feeling as one of the orbs of light it absorbed in the blue zone starts to resonate with the rust-colored flames bursting through the air from this mammoth's aura. The orb of light holding an amplifier legacy from the red hydra in the blue zone deep in my soul sword has already been digested, but it's extremely stimulated by the hot aura filling the air. An invisible pulse of energy floods out from my sword deep in my soul, and it goes back to sleep. It feels like a wave of cool energy is flooding through my mind, like I've just splashed my face into a pool of cold water. I take a sharp breath of air in, and simultaneously, a wave of understanding ripples through the atmosphere. Millions of stray glyphs inside the waves of rust-colored fire light up in my mind, shining white in the air, until my wave of consciousness flows deep enough into the primordial garden to hit the mammoth straight on. My mind lights up like fireworks as I see trillions of glyphs and arrays activating all over this monstrous creature's astral form, covering an enormous burning hot purple true core. It makes me realize the aura we're feeling truly wasn't a vicious attack. It was merely a greeting. The flashing information in my mind fades, but as Maria takes it in as a second-hand viewer, we begin bouncing ideas and concepts off each other to make this moment of understanding sink in even deeper. Ulger's yells can finally be heard through the roars. Vardon, we come in peace. This is in no means an act of war. I come with an offering, an opportunity to gain access to a new domain. The waves of heat only grow hotter, but the thick trunk of the tree we're behind shields the majority of the next blast. The ancient-sounding roars start to make the ground shake, and are even louder than the first one. That's Lord Vardon to you. An extremely deep and domineering voice echoes back. Yet I don't feel Ulger backing down. I only see more of his glyph imprints activating, and him floating up to eye level with the fiery mammoth while taking out both of his machetes. I don't feel any real hostile intent pouring out of him, but these are more arrays active than any of the lizards or insect swarms ever needed. We agreed that we would treat each other as equal allies in these final days. Do not try to make the black ogres submit to any lord. The mammoth's heat grows hotter, and I think about retreating in case this goes poorly. I may not be using my full power right now, but I'm still unable to summon high-quality ether glyphs of my own. My primordial aura and even royal vibrations may be stronger than both of these monsters before me now, but in the realm of physical attacks, they still have the upper hand. Maria is running through the same thought process. We already have another tree marked out in our minds we're about to move to in between the intensities of each wave of fire, but instead of getting hotter, the aura in the air starts to calm down. Instead of pure rage, the deep voice of this mammoth begins laughing. The trembling ground slows, and the rust filling the air recedes. What is your proposition, old friend? I haven't seen you come out this far in a long time. I was worried you grew too weak to look me in the eyes. Ulger slowly puts away his blades, then looks back in our direction. After a few deep breaths, both of us come floating out from behind the trees. Our mana-based greater energy forms are still activated, making us appear about the same size as the smallest insects in a swarm. Yet, when the rust-colored eyes of this mammoth stare into my soul from afar, I can tell he is looking at us as true threats, and senses the massive bubbles of primordial aura that grow almost 10 times as large as his own. I even start watching familiar glyphs activate in his eyes that stimulate patterns all over his dark brown fur and long white curved trunks. It seems to invigorate the massive creature's body, increasing the depth of his gaze and calming down the flames that still flicker all over his fur. Stolen content alert. This content belongs on Royal Road. Report any occurrences. Humans that have not yet gone through the soul sacrifice ritual to save their lifespans. He grunts out. So they're young, and must have just arrived here after the most recent realm wave. Abnormals in this era are so rare I thought they were nothing but a myth. Ulger looks at the mammoth with a smug look and turns his head deeper into the forest. Abnormals that can break us into the Imperial's domain without alarms or need for our strongest to donate energy for the barrier crack. We stop behind Ulger a good distance, and the two of them begin conversing about more than just the plan to raid an Imperial domain. They speak of names and gibberish about old soldiers in their domains and the progress of their younger generations. While slightly annoyed they are wasting time, it is comforting that they really are good allies reconnecting, and we can trust this beast to not accidentally kill us on the spot, at least a little more than a moment ago. Fine, I'll be your backup. And if it is a success, the two abnormals can use the Imprint Awakening artifact first. But the rest of the land we split two ways even if I don't have to step in. Vardon grumbles out in a volume I overhear as they finish their agreements. Ulger looks up at the sky, but there's nothing out of the ordinary in the branches overhead. It is a fair deal to me, but I spoke with Axel on the way here. He did not give me a definitive answer. I do assume he is listening in or at least watching. 3 ways then. Vardon looks upward too. You better caw at me if I'm getting flanked from behind. The last sneak attack I received from those outer guards left a mark for longer than I would have liked. He grumbles to himself again, but Ulger smiles and nods back at us. Good. After a long pause, Vardon gives us one last sharp look, then turns around and walks back toward his domain deep in the trees. The hot aura does not fade away entirely for almost a full minute before I actually start breathing again. That mammoth was nothing like the elites I fought in the green zone. I whisper. It had a similar build, but the fact that it was intelligent enough to speak to us already puts it in a different classification of monster. I can't tell if it's the Hydra's legacy it is using that made its aura so rich, its royal vibrations so strong and radiating, and its fur so full of vitality, but this may be the strongest creature I've ever laid my eyes on. Ulger smirks and responds. Really? There are still mammoth clans alive down there to this day. I nod slowly and tell him the differences, and a bit of disappointment bleeds into his vibrations that I catch. So they're a later generation that has devolved. It seems they're still at the peak of the lower realms talent spectrum, but still nothing like they used to be. Just like that blue ogre clan you mentioned when you saw me for the first time, our races slowly degrade over time, but it doesn't mean the lesser versions can never evolve. All it would take is extraordinary willpower and the right legacy, and one can return pretty close to their race's former glory. A glint shines in his gray eyes. Then he turns and gives us a hand gesture to follow. Anyway, come on. It's not often domain leaders meet. If we loiter too long, a wandering outer guard may see us coming. The art of surprise will be another advantage if we can keep it. In silence, we follow Ulgur through the primordial garden past hundreds more enormous trees and dozens of insect swarms. With our mana-based greater energy forms still activated, my perception is increased tens of times, and the fractured glyphs that we soak up after every one of Ulgur's fights gives me a burst of knowledge like mini enlightenments. Even the aura pouring down from us in the trees tickles our souls in a strange way, making me think deeper and absorb the information of the glyphs covering the bark all around me in greater detail. The normal forest starts to turn into something a bit different than expected. I see a familiar sight of massive gaping holes in some trees, and craters where roots were. Occasionally, entire trees are missing, and there is only a ravine in the ground below. The insect swarms and lizards avoid these open patches of land, but it doesn't stop us from flying directly over it. The divine threads in these areas are actually much denser, and it's easier to saturate our purple cores, but there is a lack of celestial energy, and the feeling of primordial aura from the trees watching us goes away. It almost feels lonely. These patches of destruction grow larger and more common. Eventually, we touch down in a rare patch of thick trees, and Ulgur pulls out both his machetes, pointing them forward. This is the first main wall. It doesn't exactly lead to any specific imperial domain, but it does mean we'll be leaving the main defensive barriers of my allied forces. This barrier is an automatic domain shield, built by the Dryads. It will be about the strength as the ones built by the Outer Guard's construction unit. I can open it with my key easily, but you too should give it a try. It will be good practice for the real thing. Once I know what I'm looking for, and stare ahead at this empty forest, I realize my eyes are playing tricks on me. Lines and dots create geometrical connections in the air, and I realize there is an invisible barrier right in front of us I couldn't see. Yet, once both Maria and I realize it's here, and move closer, everything starts to become visible to our eyes slowly and methodically. We both raise our hands again, and a warm, stimulating feeling starts to build up around the outside of our souls like we're being greeted by an old friend. The warm pressure flooding through us feels just like the burst of understanding I received moments ago peering into the mammoth's imprints. It makes the feeling of being stimulated by the elven artifact return again, and the perfect perception of the arrays and patterns in front of me returns just like the first barrier we opened up. What Ulgur said was right. This one is much thicker, filled with far more glyphs and complex layers. However, it feels like a warm, invisible consciousness is watching us decipher all of this code in front of us. When we pour our celestial energy into the wall and exert pressure from our vibrations and primordial aura into the structure, it's even easier than last time. We both have to sacrifice roughly a quarter of our celestial energy pools each. It's a lot more than what we had to give for the Black Ogre's domain, but we've already witnessed the barrier give our celestial energy back in an even more refined state. There is no doubt in my mind this will work perfectly. The blue and red energy flows through countless arrays, being squeezed and compacted into pseudoglyphs. White bursts of light start creating chain reactions all throughout the barrier in front of us. And in a matter of seconds, a beautiful archway opens up and reveals actual reality. At first, it's only about 100,000 kilometers high, large enough to fit us through in our greater forms. However, countless more spinning white layered arrays start to expand its edges. The archway grows like it is being pulled back by an invisible pair of hands. It grows in size thousands of times larger, big enough to even fit Ulgur in his black astral form. There is not actually a dense forest behind it. It appears to be a desolate flatland as far as I can see. The barrier just created an illusion that completely fooled my eyes. Ulgur smiles, and I can tell by the fluctuations in his aura, he's even more impressed than last time at the speed and efficiency we managed to achieve in breaking through this barrier. Oddly, it doesn't feel like we're even breaking into anything. It's more like we're just waving hello and the artifact is reacting to our will. Maria and I walk through and Ulgar follows. His entire mood shifts once he walks through. His curiosity and playful smugness leave his aura, and the black ogre grabs both of his machetes. Close the archway and follow close behind me. We may not be on the Imperial's radar yet, but this is all unclaimed land, either areas of pure forest or war zones left behind after domains were completely destroyed. It's not only the demons we have to look out for. I allow the moment of enlightenment to pass, and get serious too. Maria nods and we retract our consciousness from the barrier. A massive amount of raw white celestial energy is pushed back out after it's torn apart and decompressed from the high-quality ether state it was just used in. As the archway shrinks and closes to become a tiny hole, then returns to a flat wall. I even feel parts of fractured glyphs pour in with the aura. The majority of them all just flow right through me. However, fragments of them make prickling areas on my soul become stimulated for a moment. As Maria and I cycle this refined celestial energy, small amounts of her sparkling source resin creep out from her soul energy core to test the atmosphere. For some reason, it is still scared of being perceived by the primordial trees, but these fractured glyphs are all devoured once they flow through her. This is in part because when I look back to where the barrier closed, everything we saw a moment ago is gone. There are no more trees or any evidence of the forest filled with craters we just left. It looks as desolate as the open flatlands in front of us. The aura of being watched by the trees is completely gone. Though, the air does smell like metal, and the hum of stray royal vibrations and recent battles does fill the air. Ulgar doesn't stop moving forward. Come on. The faster we get across the flatlands, the better. We start moving after him, but Maria raises a question back. What about Vardon or Axel? Are they not coming with us? Ulgar looks far off to our left, where the invisible barrier leads off further than I can see. Vardon agreed to be our backup once we actually make it to the domain, and Axel will probably only watch from the sky and pick off the injured. That Griffin isn't much of a fighter, but he'd put his life on the line if I really needed it. The black ogre stares forward again. They're using their own entrance keys to get into this neutral ground in territory entry points they know well and trust. He puts his head down and floats forward faster. Both of us speed up our pace to match his, and the ground below flies by. Trillions of kilometers pass every minute, and everything around us looks the same, but so does Ulgar's determined stare. There's no extra stimulus all around us now, so we don't have to use up a large amount of our energy to block ourselves from harmful glyphs and primordial aura. That also means my comprehension of high-quality ether has stalled. The only thing running through my mind right now is cycling celestial energy with Maria, and the fading images of glyph imprints I've seen over the last hour. Without constant stimulation, my understandings of them have started to fade slightly. It's odd. Like the warm fuzzy feeling on the outside of my soul is fading back to its base cold state. Even the jolt of awareness from my blade when it felt the mammoth's aura is gone. It's totally back in its sleeping dormant state without any sign of those golden glyphs. This only makes the thought of whatever is on the other side of these flatlands so desirable. I'll be able to feel that stimulation again, and possibly it will be permanent. Seeing the consistent spinning glyphs all over this black ogre's body in front of me is the only semi-intricate pattern left I can see. After a few minutes pass, I start to see them activating with more speed, and an urgency and anxiety fills the vibrations pouring out of Ulgar. I hear him yell, "Stay back and get down." A group of Ascended spotted us. I don't hesitate at all and do what he says. Just the act of stopping our forward path makes Ulgar quickly shrink in my vision. However, my eyes are still glued to him once we both touch down on the flat ground. Reflexively, we both use celestial grade stealth and pull our primordial aura and vibrations inward to cloak our exact location. I have no idea what a group of Ascended is, but if they can scare Ulgar, it's better I don't find out up close. An incredibly bright burst of white light fills the sky. It's filled with black aura crescents from Ulgar's blades, and the outline of monstrous figures that I'm positive can only be demons. There's no vibrations or even fluctuations in the divine thread count in the air. Yet, the flashes of explosions go off over and over. I take the risk of being spotted and activate my celestial grade all-seeing eye to enhance my vision and see further away into the battlefield, and instantly feel a rush of information hit my mind. Ulgur is fighting off over a dozen bright white demons right now. Each one of them is a few 100 million kilometers tall and has the face and horns of a confident royal. But they have no vibrations to show for it, nor any divine cores or even dragons to ride on. It's a bizarre sight. The black ogre hacks away at them as they writhe in pain and attack him. His black machete is able to slice through and shatter them to pieces. There is a bit of resistance, but every hit he lands is a kill shot. Another few seconds go by, and I begin to mentally absorb the visuals of trillions of glyphs and spinning arrays bursting out from these demons. He kills them all, and they fracture to mist just like every swarm of insects and lizards we encountered in the forest before. Every cloud of mist they fill the air gets absorbed back into his body, restoring the high-quality ether lost from his longer-range attacks. It's so far away I don't get to fully appreciate and see the fine detail of many of these complex patterns, but I can tell they were on a completely different level than anything else I've seen before. Maria is wide-eyed too, as she siphons some of her source resin into her eyes in the final moments of this battle to get a closer look from her own perspective. We're about to share the visuals and bounce the images off each other's minds, but the ground starts to shake, and a loud bang and horrific wave of vibrations fills my psyche. The divine threads in the air all start bending and acting strange. Ulgur turns around to look in our direction with a serious look, but he fails to pinpoint our exact location. Instead, he waves his blades in the air and points them away from us, motioning for us to run. From what? I start to mouth to myself under my breath, but it hits me before I can even turn to try and run. The shockwave from the fight ripples through the air, lagging behind the battle a few seconds, and it's filled with extremely high-potency ether residue. A burst of violent energy floods through the air. The dense waves of divine threads alone are enough to push both of us backward, sliding over trillions of kilometers on the flat ground. Ulgur's royal vibrations burst through the air as well, piercing deep into our psyches. However, they are just residue from the explosions and not targeted at us with malicious intent. Even pockets of primordial aura collide with ours, but they mostly stay latched onto dense areas of royal vibrations. None of these are harmful to us. It is the stray high-quality ether glyphs that create the majority of the true danger. Some of them phase right through us, just like the strange attacks we witnessed from the lizards and insect swarms. However, some of the more fractured and broken glyphs collide with the outside of my soul and create a devastating impact. It feels like a heavy hammer is ringing every part of my being like a massive bell. There are so many of them that no matter what path I try to take through this storm of energy, I'm certain to be hit by one. It feels extremely hot and sharp. By the time a second, third, fifth, then even a 10th glyph hits me, this sharpness turns to intense pain, like my essence is being fractured. The only thing that holds me together is the fact that I'm still cycling celestial energy with Maria. It is so fast and natural that despite fractures building up all over our souls, they begin healing at a similar rate. Our perception skills were enhanced to their max upon impact, and we are quite a large distance away. We are quite small targets considering the size of these blasts, and after traveling tens of trillions of kilometers from Ulgur, they've spread out quite a bit. Still, over 100 of them hit each of us. I feel hairline fractures created all over my soul, but I'm held together by a glistening rainbow essence that leaks in from Maria's celestial energy. Unlike my fire that breaks apart each impact, this source resin is not affected at all by the constant hits. When the shockwave passes, and my celestial fire burns bright again, healing me from the inside out, all of the fracture lines have their source resin flood out through the next celestial energy cycle back into Maria's soul energy core. While painful, it was extremely exhilarating. The flatlands grow quiet while in my vision I see Ulgur flying our way in an anxious state. Yet, when I look at Maria, and look back at myself through her eyes, I see our glyph imprints flickering with life. They appear for almost a full 10th of a second, which is like an eternity compared to the stimulation we've had so far. The visuals of the dozens of white demons fighting Ulgur moments ago flash in my mind again, and so many more of the glyphs all over their bodies start to make more sense. I gasp with a deep breath of air as I feel my consciousness hit its highest point of saturation from this wave of information. My entire soul feels burning hot, but in a satisfying way, and my view of reality around me fades. The imagery of my soul sword flashing with golden glyphs pulses for no more than a millionth of a second before all sight of the flatlands disappear. A familiar vision takes over my mind again, one I received only after defeating Samir Vanguard and destroying his armor. I'm looking down at the back of a golden dragon as it flaps its wings. Below us, there is a white forest filled with incredibly massive trees. It looks like the primordial garden, but something is very different. I can't tell what it is or why, but now when I look down at the body of the being I'm viewing these memories through, I start to see glyphs and high-quality ether patterns that actually make sense. Before, it was just gibberish to my dark blue cord mind. Whatever this is, these are memories directly from a demon. Stolen from its rightful place, this narrative is not meant to be on Amazon. Report any sightings. I feel like I'm piecing something vital together again, and I start to look up to where this dragon is flying to, but the moment I do, the visions cease. The burning hot glow filling my soul becomes less comforting and more painful, the majority of it moving straight to my head, accompanied by a flash of golden and silver light. I grit my teeth and bear it. By now, I'm getting used to these memory blocks. They aren't as painful and disorienting as they used to be. I'm still fully conscious and standing, watching Ulgar touch down in front of us with wide eyes. "You're fine?" he says in a soft and questioning tone. Maria responds, "Yeah, more than fine. In fact, if you can hit us with another one of those shockwaves, I think it'd be beneficial." That stimulated our glyph imprints far more than the elven artifacts did. He nods, thinking to himself for a moment before turning back around. Most of the Ascended are royals that weren't strong enough to withstand the Dryad's legacies they stole. It's often a hybrid imprint, mixed with original glyphs from the demonic race as their base imprints. Maybe whatever small amount they absorbed from the Dryads, you too somehow managed to use it for yourselves. I doubt mana-based beings could absorb glyphs created for demons. He pauses, then starts moving forward again. Even so, just because you can withstand some residue from that range doesn't mean you should be getting anywhere near the action. If there was one group, there will be more nearby. Stay back and be careful. As I let my vibrations and primordial aura flow outward again, I can feel Ulgar's emotions, and despite his calm demeanor and serious attitude, he's shaking with excitement and surprise. While he flies away, both of us follow with smiles across our faces. Clearly, he has no idea something like that would happen. After a few minutes pass as we fly through the desolate flatlands, and the warmth around my soul fades. We bounce the memories of our epiphanies off each other to keep the stimulation longer, but it still fades without external help. While a little disheartening, like we're on the come down from the ultimate high, Ulgar's loud yell raises our hopes before losing the sensation entirely. "Another group. Prepare yourselves." We get down, but don't bother using stealth at all this time. We focus entirely on our perception skills and shielding techniques to withstand the initial impact. The beautiful sight of the enormous billion-kilometer-tall black ogre fending off 17 white demons ranging from 100 to 500 million kilometers tall each is incredible. All of his movements are swift and precise. I can see the exact amount of high-quality ether he sacrifices for each blow. The long-range attacks cost far more than the ones where he keeps his energy close and breaks through the demon's entire beings with single slashes with a bare blade. The bulk of the bright white high-quality ether is in a pure mist form by the time it's drained into Ulgar's body. But with keener eyes and a steady mind not concerned with survival, I can easily watch a select few collections of glyphs that activate each time, converting raw high-quality ether into this ogre's own energy source. Most of the shattered glyphs that fall through Ulgar are not absorbed at all. They mostly break apart, either bouncing off into the atmosphere or shattering into small enough pieces until the arrays I watched before can digest them. The demons, on the other hand, their attacks start to look very simple and understandable. What was gibberish and random unpredictable arrays moments ago now looks almost as normal as the Black Ogre's glyphs. Even the shockwave that hits us a few seconds later is no longer life-threatening. We still brace ourselves, but repeat exactly what we did before with full confidence. Our souls fracture, and our glyph imprints all pulse for about 1/10 of a second again. My sword ignores everything this time, like there is no new information, uninterested in what it can't devour. However, Maria's sword is starting to shine out of her soul brighter and brighter. The rest of her source resin fully emerges, now that it's sure no primordial trees are nearby. We don't even have to try to dodge the glyph impacts this time, allowing over 1,000 to hit us, and the sparkling energy holds us together like glue. By the time Ulgar flaps back, we're already glowing with vitality and our souls are warm and stimulated. No more words have to be spoken at all. The black ogre nods and continues to lead us through the flatlands. We run into 5 more groups of these white demons, and they grow in numbers each time. The most recent group Ulgar defeated had 31 in total. Maria and I are back in the groove of constant enlightenment. It's like we're back beneath the trees soaking in as much information as we can from all angles. When watching Ulgar fight these demons now, there aren't many glyphs I can't recognize. Every attack lands exactly where I predict it will before it's even finished being charged up. However, my own imprints still don't light up for more than 1/10 of a second, and it's not by my own doing. It's an automatic reaction. When I try to activate them myself or even mimic patterns using celestial energy in front of me, the best I can do is create weak structures that hardly look like lines and dots. Artificially compressing celestial energy does not have the same effect as the arrays used in the barrier. While pushing my mind to its limits trying to come up with new strategies, I'm interrupted by a loud eagle screech in the air. I can't see where it's come from, so it must be far higher up than I can see. At the same time, Ulgar stops moving and puts a hand up for us to stop. Axel spotted a party of outer guards. They usually don't venture out this far. Their closest domain is still quite far away. It's either a freak coincidence, or they knew we were coming. Ulgar's vibrations grow tense, but I don't sense any fear, only the sense that he is calculating what to do next. He's deciding whether to fight or avoid them. He looks far off to our right, then motions for us to follow. Come on, we'll go around. Our travel path changes drastically, shifting in sharp angles every few minutes as loud caws ring out through the air. We encounter another 4 groups of ascended demons, in squads of between 30 and 35. Ulgar does not bother avoiding them and kills everyone on the spot, allowing us to soak in their broken glyphs after every shockwave. Yet, the strange travel path we're taking cannot be just about avoiding one group of outer guards. They have multiple search parties surveying the area. They're definitely looking for something. Comes out of Ulgar's mouth soon after, confirming my suspicions. His confidence and careful directional shifts put me at ease too. The main thing I let my mind sink into is absorbing as much information from these ascended demons as I can. After over 10 shockwaves in total, I'm not gaining any new critical information, but my understanding grows on a deeper level. While all of the glyphs mean the same thing on the surface, like a single ancient character describing only one word or simple idea, the patterns of many glyphs together, used in different ways, begin to build on their deeper meanings and dual purposes. It's like I'm dissecting the language itself and comprehending the fundamentals better. With Maria tearing open this language in her consciousness as well, we unravel their meanings faster and faster. This takes a large amount of mental energy, as well as pure celestial energy cycling to keep our bodies and souls intact. It refines our pools to be more and more pure, slowly converting our soul energy core's density closer to a higher quality base, one cycle at a time. This flow state only lasts a little longer before we start seeing trees far off on the horizon. Slowly, the sensation of primordial aura watching us and a heavy pressure in the air returns. Ulgar slows down, pulls out his blades, becoming far more careful, and Maria's source resin sinks back into the protective center of her soul. I feel slightly more vulnerable knowing that if we're hit by another shockwave right now, her source resin won't glue us back together with as much strength and confidence. However, when I start to see some of the glyphs on the bark and leaves of the trees we approach, I feel far more comforted. They don't seem as awe-inspiring, like they are on an entirely different level. Now, I can see a large amount of the individual shielding commands in the trunk and automatic ether refinement in its leaves, cycling the stray ether in the air. The slight patterns and movements of the insects and lizards from before make far more sense. When we make it to the trilene, Ulger looks around but doesn't stop moving forward. We keep the same pace and fly inward. I don't block every aggressive fractured glyph out with my bubble of primordial aura. Letting a few through to stimulate my imprints actually feels quite good. It's hard to tell if my energy readings have been adjusted after our flight through the flatlands, or if what I'm sensing now is real, but for some reason, the trees in this forest feel like they have weaker wills. If I were to stare deep into their cores and open up my soul to their complexity, I would be overwhelmed, just like before, but I get a strange sense from the royal vibrations in the air that makes me believe these trees are less rich with vitality. It's like they're more concerned with surviving than thriving. We take it all in as new information and take advantage of the higher potency ether in the air again. Our understanding from the ascended demons starts to fade slightly, but our baseline of stimulation rises as we get a constant light source of information floating through these trees. The faint aura of the fiery mammoth starts to touch the back of my mind. It is only a few small pulses from behind us at an angle, and they fade just as fast as they come. He's letting us know he's here, Ulger remarks as we make a sharp turn around another tree. We haven't run into anything living in this patch of trees yet, and it is slightly eerie. The black ogre leading the way slowly floats down to the ground between two massive tree roots, then looks up at the two trees they're connected to. A gap of about 3 trillion kilometers spans between them, far closer together than most in this area. Here we are. I think I lost the outer guards that were sent out on scouting missions, but once we make it through here, it's going to be almost impossible to avoid them. This is one of the least used entry points into the demon's main territory, so we should still be safe until we venture closer to their valued domains. As Maria and I touch down and walk forward, another light pulse of rust-colored vibrations tickles the back of my mind. At the same time, a cool white vibration comes in from the sky, and it feels like that griffin is staring at the back of my neck. Their vibrations are tethered to their primordial auras and dense, high-quality ether commands with such precision. Just feeling this opens up my mind further to the possibilities of how these energy sources can be used. We don't waste any time and put our hands up in the air again. Streams of refined blue and red energy pour out of our palms and collide with an invisible barrier before us. It's even thicker and more complex than the last one we opened up. The warm, inviting feeling resonates with our souls just like the last barrier, and the one in the Black Ogre's domain, and I recognize many more glyphs this time. Allowing it to drain over half of our celestial energy pools each is not a problem. We do it with smiles on our faces. We let our primordial aura and vibrations seep into the invisible wall and feel a semi-conscious pressure latch onto it, testing our mental strength and intentions before activating the next step. When our energy is siphoned through the compression arrays, I see far more high-quality ether being synthesized than I thought there would be. It felt like we only had twice as much as last time, but it appears over 5 times the volume of glyphs is being stimulated. In fact, it doesn't even have to run through as many arrays as the times before. If we tried to crack this barrier an hour ago, we wouldn't have had enough ether or control over our minds to handle it. It makes the archway opening up in front of our eyes so much more satisfying. Fragments of our consciousnesses and sacrificed energy from our soul are present while trillions of spinning glyphs all act at once. Both of our eyes gloss over as we fall into an overstimulating trance. All of the glyph imprints on our bodies flash bright white for almost a full quarter second. In this moment of intensity, the archway expands and uses far more energy than what was put in. Many dormant glyphs in the invisible barrier react to this flash of light, and the entire wall opens up from both of its outer edges, 3 trillion kilometers apart, where it touches the bark of 2 primordial trees. As I start to get my vision back and we begin walking forward after successfully opening up the barrier, Ulger lunges forward, leaving a dark and menacing aura behind as he flies right over our heads. "It's an ambush. They knew we were coming," he yells out in a guttural tone, sending 2 long-range slashes of primordial aura packed with high-quality glyphs from his blades. I blink once, and my gaze tracks to where he's aimed. There are 6 bright white demons in a symmetrical formation on the other side of the barrier. Their eyes are bright purple, just like their soul weapons, and most shocking of all, the hot purple true cores spinning in their chests. Reality bends around them, and not a single one of them is smaller than Ulgur. All of them are over 1 billion kilometers tall in their current energy forms. My vision starts to blur as waves of 6 different royal demons' vibrations hit my psyche. At the same time, a hot rust-colored fire starts to burn my back and fill my senses from behind. The life forms in front of me are all incredibly strong. It's almost unbelievable. In all of the zones below, I've managed to have some kind of edge on my enemies or quickly find the power to overwhelm them entirely. Now, I feel the true auras of purple core demons and understand that they are on an entirely different level. With the fractions of a second I have to think, the options of trying to borrow stats and activate my more powerful energy forms come to mind. However, the instant a flicker of my soul tries to activate even my astral form, my instincts scream at me to stop. Maria and I are still connected to the open barrier between these 2 primordial trees, and increasing our perception will only do more harm than good that the added strength will grant. Using my celestial foresight skill, I start to see many paths of the near future where my mind is fried by the pressure of the trees, and others where the shockwave of glyphs from the demon's collision with Ulgur tears our physical bodies to shreds. Yet, one emerging pathway of futures catches my attention. I don't hesitate at all and follow it, with Maria trailing right beside me. We both dive to our left, toward the closest tree root. It is too far away for us to hide behind before the brunt of the shockwave from the outer guards hits us, but avoiding it isn't exactly what I'm aiming for. The rust-colored aura from the fiery mammoth grows hotter and hotter behind us. At first, I thought it was just announcing its presence like before, or possibly just moving forward, and the intensity of heat I'm feeling is what it naturally gives off. However, there are fluctuations in its vibrations that allow me to see its entire aura with far greater detail. It may be a side effect from still being attached to the domain barrier, but the more I think about its soul, the more it's like flicking one strand of a spiderweb and seeing the entire nest mapped out in my mind. We dive into a pocket of the mammoth's aura that is dense with recognizable glyphs. I'm certain these aren't naturally occurring, and from the vague understanding I've gained from the digested Hydra's legacy in my sword, I can tell they are some kind of advanced shielding arrays. The glyphs only attach to each other in a small area of space, and I can feel the mammoth's mind send simple patterns of vibrations into mine that push me to position myself closer and closer to these glyphs. By the time the shockwave hits, both Maria and I are behind them, and a horrific sight plagues the forest around us. The tree root we were headed toward is completely annihilated, and so is the tough ground beneath it. Even the footpath we took lunging toward this dense pocket of aura is destroyed as well. Only a thin portion of ground is left behind a collection of white and rust-colored spinning arrays. Everything else around us has been hollowed out like the enormous craters I witnessed back in the Black Ogre's shelter. The shielding in front of us starts fracturing and breaking apart from the impact of more shockwaves, but the heat from behind grows even more intense. I sense far more white glyphs pouring in toward us from behind, but they are not filled with any harmful intent. In the depths of my mind, I watch the white tusks of this mammoth glowing with high-quality ether. Every time it whips its massive head back and forth, more ancient power peels off it and floats our way. A very symmetrical box of shielding arrays starts forming around us, piecing itself together slowly. Its outer layers are tethered with extremely thick primordial aura that has somehow left the mammoth's body. It is no longer attached to its soul. Now it is attached to the glyphs that hold a single purpose: to protect us from the blasts. It's eye-opening, as Maria and I stand unaffected by the chaos that goes on outside. However, a slight irritation lingers as I realize there was absolutely no need for it to almost kill us with its aura when we first met. This thought quickly fades as I take in the complexity all around me. The majority of my inner mind is only able to focus on the arrays that have created this protective shield. Half of my soul is still lingering inside the domain barrier. It is protected by the unknown warm and inviting consciousness inside the strange structure, which allows me to see the battlefield with far greater clarity through a surveillance system-like sense of vision. I stay silent and eyes wide while Ulgur fights 6 purple core demons at once. He does not hold anything back. His previously nonchalant demeanor while being our guide is completely gone. The calm movements and simple battle style he showed while fighting the ascended demons on the flatlands were clearly not his true nature. The Black Ogre is actually a ferocious assassin. An absurd amount of killing intent leaks out from his soul as he starts sacrificing large percentage amounts of his high-quality ether in every single strike he throws. Thick crescents of black aura tethered with royal vibrations, primordial aura, and high-quality ether explode outward from his blades. These long-range attacks are all followed up by spinning slashes and close-up jabs at the purple core demon's vitals. Ulgur moves so fast, I can't even see him with my actual eyes. The only way I can perceive his strange movements is through the domain barrier array. Even then, it looks like afterimages are popping up all over the battlefield. I can't fully perceive everything. These 6 demons all counter with sword strikes, axe cuts, hammer swings, spear thrusts, shield blocks, and dagger attacks of their own. The demons look almost as fast as Ulgur to my unskilled eyes. They all begin sacrificing large amounts of their high-quality ether too, creating explosions that tear holes in nearby trees and form craters all over the ground. Some of them even start pushing a strange essence that looks like it is imbued with demonic energy into their blows. They take far more glyphs to activate and seem to have a slower charge up time than their normal attacks. However, Ulgur always dodges these and never tries to confront them head-on. The only ones he dares to take hits from are their normal high-quality ether strikes or longer-range weaker hits. I can see why when an especially strong axe wielder misses Ulgur's neck with a close-range attack, and it hits a tree trunk behind him instead. The strike slices right through the base of a primordial tree and causes it to come crashing down. Explosions of primordial aura and foreign ether from that destruction blind my real body's vision with a flash of white light. The sight from my surveillance even starts fading as Ulgur leads these demons away from the barrier. The last images I see are of one of the Black Ogre's machetes tearing through a demon's neck and the other piercing the true core of another. The 4 remaining outer guards start to retreat, but Ulgur throws his 2 victims aside and flies forward to keep his momentum. What he said earlier inside his domain was true. If he doesn't have to be careful of others' lives, these outer guards really are no match for him. A path of destruction leads far away, further than I can see. Now, the only proof I have that he is still fighting are the shockwaves that burst through the forest and continue hitting the array we're stuck in. Every blast tears layers of this structure off. I watch high-quality ether commands feature under the impact and fly away in the waves of energy bursting by our sides. Yet, just enough glyphs keep floating in from behind us to recreate the proactive shield and save us from harm. The atmosphere around us glows brighter and brighter with rust-colored flames as the massive astral form of Vardon comes floating into sight behind us. He peers down at us, then back up toward the forest where Ulgur disappeared. The box of glyphs we're standing in lifts up off the small amount of ground left and moves forward at the same rate the fiery mammoth does. Its low, grumpy voice echoes through the air. If they knew we were coming, they would have sent more than just those guards. Odds are, they were only expecting you too. It gives a smug grunt, but I feel a ripple of amusement in its vibrations. The shock waves from far out in the forest stop coming, and Vardon nods to himself. I can only assume this means Ulgur finished them off. Without asking, we're transported past the 2 trees where the domain barrier was opened. Vardon stops moving us and starts to retract the glyphs back into his tusks. The intense aura outside starts leaking back in, now that it is not an active war zone. Vardon is soaking up all of the stray fractured glyphs in the air, and many that are still intact and far stronger than anything I'd even attempt to absorb. He is protecting us from these but also benefiting greatly. His own glyph imprints flare up and glow brightly after each large pocket of ether is consumed. The only glyphs he doesn't dare touch or even go near are those still soaked with dark purple demonic essence. Some pockets of the demon's past strongest attacks still float in the air or are stained into the bark and leaves of nearby trees. They don't dissolve or meld well with the natural atmosphere at all. They become more and more visible to my senses as the barrier Vardon has created slowly peels away and falls back into his long white tusks. The only harmful thing that hits my senses once we're exposed to the outside is the violent pressure of primordial aura and royal vibrations in the air. collides with our psyches, and I witness the battle Ulgar had all over again from a different perspective. It is like the shadows of their intents are all left behind. Once Vardon's shielding array is completely gone, the enormous archway between the trees behind us starts to naturally close back up too. The rush of our sacrificed celestial energy starts to come back with it. All of the fire and ice has been separated out, and the pure white ether that flows back through the invisible barrier arrays is noticeably more pure than what is still remaining in our soul energy cores. When it floods back into our souls, and we retract our primordial aura with it, the most intense flash of enlightenment so far stimulates my mind. The sensation of the warm semi-conscious being inside these barriers is the strongest it's ever been, and the imagery of its soul bowing down, praying to both of us can't be avoided. It feels like it's hugging both the inside and outside of our souls while information floods in with the celestial energy we're processing. Our glyph imprints flash bright white for a full second, and it feels like we're receiving over twice as much ether back as we put in, and it's easily 5 times as pure. If there wasn't a mysterious entity holding my soul together with warm hands, I would probably pass out, or even experience fractures all over my psyche like I did when facing the foreign aura of those ascended demons. Instead, I feel completely fine, and reality around me disappears. Maria, right beside me, is the only other sensation I feel while illusions of past memories start to play in our minds. We're experiencing a shared memory, or possibly a small legacy reacting with the one we've already absorbed. It starts off slightly blurred, with only shadowy figures moving around in symmetric patterns, but soon they come into focus as glyphs in the air shift and fall into place. All of the figures in this vision have dense true purple cores and extremely white, smooth skin. They look like humans at first glance, but the more I stare at them all working hard at creating a massive collection of high-quality ether commands, the more I'm certain they're not like us. Some have green vines coming out of their skin, and each of them helps to activate ether commands after. Others are covered in leaves, like extra armor on their skin, and they all have bright green eyes and hair to match it. They are mostly women, yet a very small few among their ranks are men with soft, feminine features. All of their primordial aura gives off an earthy feeling, like they are the embodiment of nature itself. Through the eyes of whatever is granting us these memories, I don't feel any pressure at all from their overwhelming power. It feels calming and kind. Yet, the longer I soak in it, the more I feel how similar it is to the primordial trees. Support creative writers by reading their stories on Royal Road, not stolen versions. When this memory holder looks around, there are no trees like the thick forest holds now. It's only flatlands as far as the eye can see. I look back at the massive structure they all seem to be working on together, and every time a new collection of glyphs is pushed into it, they disappear. It is an enormous wall that spans to the edges of this zone and must have an unfathomable amount of power imbued into it. A structure this size and with so much complexity cannot be made in a single session. There must be many of these humanoid beings that have given their whole lives and sacrificed all of the high-quality ether in their cores to create it. I recognize some of the glyphs from our 3 run-ins with these domain barriers, but the longer I stare at these images, I connect more dots and feel as though understandings from this memory holder are bleeding into mine. It feels like time is speeding up, as a time lapse of more purple-cored entities fly in from beyond my vision to help and sacrifice their entire ether pools to create a larger and larger wall. At first, it's hours, then days, then years, and I lose track of time while watching the sight. Yet, only a second goes by in reality. The hold on these memories fades as our glyph imprints start to dim down after the intense flash. But I start to understand exactly what they're building as the perfect clarity fades back to a fuzzy blur. This was a flashback to the creation of this invisible barrier. The warm, inviting aura fades away, and our glyphs flicker and glow with a warm, dim white light for a full 10 seconds after. My mind is spinning with new concepts and epiphanies, yet when I come back to my normal train of thought, I realize how strange this really is. Why are the Dryads helping us? I say out loud, turning to Maria, then back at the invisible wall we just passed through. Unlike before, I can actually see a majority of the glyphs and understand their function now. There are none that should ever give back the ether that is sacrificed to open it. This is a core function in the barrier. In order to keep it active, it needs fuel from those that use it. The fact that we're getting more ether back than given is even more baffling, and clearly, there is a deeper function I can't yet see. Maria shakes her head. I don't know. It makes no sense to me either, but we might as well take advantage of it while we can. Then shrugs and stares down at her palms that still hold dim glyphs on their surface. She moves her right hand in the air and channels a small amount of celestial energy into the few remaining patterns. And I can't help but try the same once I realize what she's doing. Blue and red streams of extremely refined celestial energy pour out of our hands, and perfect replicas of the refinement glyphs that were present in the domain barrier start forming. The celestial energy squeezes itself through layers of glyphs, then uses the higher refined versions of itself to begin creating more arrays to condense itself further. Our imprints are growing dimmer by the second, but by the time they fully fade, both of us manage to produce a single high-quality glyph that floats up into the air. They slowly drift closer, then begin twirling and spinning around each other, and eventually collide. It produces an explosion of violent red and blue light but fades into mist right after. Maria and I celebrate, but the fiery mammoth that witnessed this anomaly occurring below it can't believe its eyes. The explosion goes off right between its tusks as it was watching the reaction of the glyph imprints flashing prior, and it reflexively puts up a shielding array to block the blast. It's nowhere near as destructive as the shockwaves it had to block from Ulger's fight, but Vardon's eyes widen when it feels a few of the glyphs in the front of its array fracture from the impact. We float forward past the astonished mammoth and inspect the aftermath of craters and injured trees all over the battlefield. In the furthest portion of my mind, I feel Ulger's royal vibrations becoming more known as he started to return back to us. But this isn't the main thing I'm attracted to. Instead, I float closer to the nearest primordial tree that was hit by a stray attack of demonic essence. It's still stained dark purple, and there are very strange glyphs floating inside it like they are trapped. None are able to dissolve into the air, yet the corruption that swirls in my demon's core feels very attracted to it. Maria stops moving in midair once we get too close, but I keep floating forward. Stop! Don't move any closer. If that demonic essence infects you, there will be nothing I can do to save you. Vardon's voice echoes out from behind me once he finally shakes himself out of shock. A collection of shielding arrays starts to form in front of me. Far past the tree I float toward, the dark outline of a black ogre comes into my visual range as well. He's right. Their essence is nasty. It's a mutated legacy, one mana-based lifeforms like us cannot even interact with. The core of its energy signature is like poison to our souls. Touching it would be a death sentence, he proclaims. My new heightened senses take in the aura of this ogre as he has returned to his calm and collected state. Yet, he cannot hide the overflowing power that is stimulating all of his glyph imprints. His astral form is hardly even black anymore, with all of the white ether commands glowing beneath the surface. All of the plain white, pure, high-quality ether glyphs from those demons have been absorbed into his pool. It appears he's almost twice as strong as he was moments ago. All I do is nod, then look back at the fiery mammoth that has put a wall of glyphs in front of me. Thank you for the concern for my safety, but my body is different than yours. I don't think it'll be harmful to me like it is to both of you. Vardon looks away from me with a grunt and over to Ulger. I've never met one of this race before, but now I know why. Humans are not intelligent enough to survive in the primordial garden. How do you expect me to honor my side of the deal if he's adamant on killing himself? Ulger rolls his eyes at the mammoth's words and looks back to me with a serious glare. A large amount of his newly acquired glyphs float up to his eyes and flash with white scanning arrays, floating through me a few times. At first, nothing happens, and he stays nervous at my words. But I loosen up the barrier of royal vibrations holding my corruption back inside my demon's core to let a small aura seep out. The next pulse of high-quality ether that streams through me makes the ogre's eyes widen with shock. He immediately retracts his scanning glyphs back into his soul. Let him through. He waves a hand in the air, now showing the same face of shock that Vardon did the moment Maria and I produced high-quality glyphs for the first time. The mammoth grunts, and the white wall in front of me dissolves. and each glyph floats back toward the tusks they came off. I keep moving toward the dark purple liquid. It slowly swirls around within a confined space. Primordial aura and royal vibrations of the demon that came from it slowly seep out, but none of the demonic energy or glyphs inside flow in the natural atmosphere like all of the rest of the energy. For some reason, these glyphs all make perfect sense to me. I can't exactly tell what each of them does individually, but when I scan my gaze across all of them, I feel like I have the intrinsic knowledge stored away in my mind. Their patterns don't feel harmful. They look like they'd be extremely nourishing, almost like a key I desperately need. Silence and tension fill the air as I float close enough to reach out and touch one of the white glyphs floating inside the dark purple energy. Instead of using any of my mana-based forms to make direct contact, I allow the entire suppression barrier around my royal demon's core to be lifted and let the thick coiling tendrils of corruption out. They hold the wills and demonic energy of 3 royal demons, tens of thousands of high nobles, and a countless number of nobles and lesser-class demons from the ravine. They are all controlled and dominated by my own will, but one that has been separated from the will that resides in my celestial fire. This story originates from a different website. Ensure the author gets the support they deserve by reading it there. When these dark tendrils of corruption touch the outside of the glob of purple energy, they immediately pulse and vibrate with life. The vibrations I'm controlling begin to resonate and combine with the leftover vibrations in this essence, and they start to become one. Purple globs of demonic essence start to flow into the tentacle-like feelers of black corruption. The tendrils grow in power and size and dive deep into the pocket of energy to surround the closest glyph. The white symbol becomes covered in strands of darkness, cracked and fractured apart, then consumed instantly. This only makes the dark energy coming out of me grow in size. It is like a chain reaction, making the tendrils of corruption flood through the sap-like demonic essence faster and destroy every glyph it can get its energy near. Rivers of dark purple energy and sparkling white light travel down the tendrils of corruption back into my being, and the enormous mass of demonic essence on this tree shrinks at a noticeable rate. I'm far too engrossed in the process to care for the eyes wide with disbelief behind me. The feelings of familiarity I had for every glyph become so much clearer once they're crushed and digested. It's like I had a dictionary of all of their uses trapped away in the back of my mind from long ago, and now I'm reading it again with perfect memory as a refresher. In less than a minute, over half of the demonic essence in this blob is completely gone, pouring into my demon's core and being compressed, while the raw high-quality ether is being absorbed as pure knowledge. A dense white mist of residue I can't absorb is flowing out behind me, where Maria watches. Her eyes glow with sparkling source resin as more floods out from her core, temporarily ignoring the primordial aura of the trees. It appears willing to take the risk of being perceived, as the purity and fine broken-up structure of this mist is far too desirable to pass up. There are no stray glyphs, harmful vibrations, or even divine threads in this mist. Ulgar and Vardon even look down with jealousy in their eyes. The demonic essence glob is shrinking, and this makes the remaining glyphs inside it far more concentrated. My tendrils of corruption could only pick out the stray isolated ones at first, but now it is reaching into the core where collections of far more compact arrays are still intact. I feel myself slipping away into a trance as the information I'm gaining speeds up, and its volume increases as well. This translates to my senses leaving reality behind again, and memories from this legacy flood into my mind with it. All I see is a dark black room. The sound of wings flapping fills the silence, and the eyes of this memory holder turn up toward the noise. A pair of golden dragon wings fill their vision, and the sound of teeth gritting back and forth follows as they look down again. I see a demon's body. They have a dense, saturated purple true core, but I'm certain only their royal demon's core has combined with celestial energy. It's extremely dense and holds more volume than a million seas that filled the blue zone, but it does not have the smooth and refined features of high-quality ether. A demonic yell comes out of their mouth. Accept me as the Emperor. The Creator's legacy is mine. As the first demon to take control of this system, I demand you show yourself to me. Over and over it yells into the darkness, and I hear the slow flapping of wings above. I was created for this sole purpose, My race as a whole is superior to all of the lifeforms birthed by mana below. I am the anomaly of creation itself. There is no one better suited for the Creator's glyphs than me. His hands start glowing with bright purple auras, filled with celestial-grade demonic essence. He slams waves of them into the floor, filling the air with bright, sparkling light. But nothing seems to happen. Whatever structure he's in doesn't move at all. The constant bashing of energy fills the air with enough glow to reveal the full glory of the golden dragon flying above him, and I see the bright crimson eye of a dragon I recognize. My inner soul shivers, but the memories don't stop moving forward. A statue of a demon is lit up by the purple explosions on one side of this dark room, and another statue of an angel lights up on the other. If you won't accept the rightful owner of this legacy, then I will make my own. You believe only living beings birthed from mana can become immortals. I will show you what true immortality is. None of you shall ever reach the upper realm again. The demons shall reign until this legacy is rightfully given to me. It continues throwing a tantrum, lighting up the room with more and more purple light, illuminating Originator's text all over the walls that do not react at all with its energy. For a moment, I catch a glimpse of the crimson eyes of the dragon in the air again, and for the first time ever in any memory of Ember, I see they're filled with fear. I don't know why, or what he's become worried about, but as I try to focus more to find out, my grasp on these memories starts to fade. The demon's yelling carries on, but it becomes harder and harder to make out. The primordial forest around me starts to come back into view, and I see the dark tendrils of corruption retracting back into my demon's core in front of me. Every last drop of demonic essence on that tree's bark is completely gone. My corruption falls back entirely into my core, yet it doesn't feel bloated or overstimulated at all by the massive increase in energy volume it's consumed. The purple and white light has all fallen into its depths, devoured, and seemingly disappears. Yet, the moment I reseal its outer edges with a thick layer of royal vibrations, a ripple of white light flows through my whole greater form. It even makes my primordial aura tremble, and it creates a mirrored effect on Maria's body like an identical pool of warm energy is expanding from her soul too. Feels like I'm being dropped into a warm bath. The wave of warm light even refines the celestial energy in my body further, and it lights up a layer of the glyph imprints on the outer edges of my soul. It is not invasive or overstimulating at all. The warmth hits its peak and then slowly fades a few seconds later. When I turn around, Maria and I already have the same idea brewing again. We instantly take advantage of this stimulation and siphon celestial energy through the massive amount of glyphs that are already lit up. It still takes multiple arrays to compress the sacrificed energy, but it feels smoother and more natural this time. Both of us managed to summon over half a dozen glyphs each and mimic the shielding array Vardon created to protect us moments ago. It's an extremely weak version, and is only one layer thick, but it holds its structure in the air for almost a full 15 seconds before the glyphs become unstable and explode high above us. Even as the warmth fades, there are still dim glowing glyphs all over our bodies. It's an extremely low amount compared to the total, and they are nowhere near full luminosity, but they're consistently glowing. The celestial energy in my soul is refined enough to the point where, even though I'm not in the middle of a trance or moment of enlightenment, I feel like I could summon one or two glyphs with ease. Looking up at the red and blue mist in the air, I do realize that once ether is used in this fashion, it's not as easy to absorb it all back. Some of the fragments of high-quality glyphs float back down into our auras, but they're harder to digest, and it takes effort to create replicas of the reverse arrays found in the Dryad's barrier to decompress the ether to a reasonable density before it can fall back into our cores. Even so, we still try it and are mesmerized by the process. The black ogre and fiery mammoth that have watched this all occur before their eyes can't believe what they're seeing. Ulgar, did you make an agreement with a demon? Are they just leading us into a trap? No, I don't think so. I couldn't sense his core at all before. He must be some kind of hybrid. Or, I don't know. The woman doesn't have a core. She's certainly a human. She must be. But they just activated a portion of their legacy from a demon's essence. What is going on? The two of them argue back and forth, equally surprised and in awe as they watch more complex glyphs woven and practiced in front of their faces with ease. I turn my gaze to the rest of the battlefield, then to Ulger. I hope you don't mind if we claim the rest of your loot from a fight you rightfully won. It seems you can't make use of this essence anyway. His gaze follows mine as I stare at the globs of purple essence all over the trees, roots, and craters in the ground where he fought off the 6 outer guards. The black ogre just slowly nods, and I grin back. Excellent. Maria and I float off toward the next tree, leaving the 2 ancient true-cord high-quality ether-wielding domain lords lost for words as I move to inject more tendrils of corruption into a nearby pool of demonic essence at the base of another tree. Unauthorized tail usage. If you spot this story on Amazon, report the violation. One by one, we move through the forest and I collect the left-behind energy from each of the demon's stray strikes. I don't receive any visions, only more layers of crystal-clear understandings of the glyphs I'm crushing and absorbing into my corruption. The demonic energy pool inside my core grows far more intense, and the vibrations inside it become filled by the presence of 6 more royal demons. Even though they were purple cores and royals themselves, their wills do not seem as strong as my own, or even the wills of the family heads that are residing in my corruption, dominated by my own. Their demonic essence and the purity of ether I'm managing to absorb, on the other hand, is leagues above anything I touched in the ravine or blue zone. I vividly remember tiny drops of this purple liquid I managed to drain from mindless demons in the ravine, but now, I'm draining oceans of it that saturate my royal demon's core, making it hum with power. Every time I fully retract my corruption back into my core, the same pulse of digested ether bursts through me. When my own glyphs are stimulated, the exact same ones on Maria's body light up. We absorb over 20 dense pools of essence by the time we get to the final resting place of these 6 demons. Their remains are nothing but a pile of shattered demon cores sitting in pools of thick demonic essence, glowing purple horns, and the soul weapons. They all lay scattered in a deep hole. It looks like Ulger somehow moved them all here, but their bodies are completely gone. When they were fighting, I couldn't accurately scan what they were made of, so staring at this loot left behind is still a mystery. My primordial aura's bubble has expanded drastically again, flowing out over 100 billion kilometers, and even managing to touch the inner bark of many primordial trees without forcing me to react to it. A few attempts at looking deep into the primordial tree that was chopped down show me I still am not capable of fully peering into the depths of whatever they are, but I've made progress. When my aura starts to scan this loot on the ground, I'm fully expecting my sword to wake up and greedily eat these soul weapons, but it doesn't even vibrate one bit. The blade in my soul continues to sleep. Maria and I activate the maximum amount of glyphs we can while still slightly warm from the last essence absorption, and a few thousand red and blue symbols flow down to the ground and move underneath the horns and weapons. They float upward, carrying the loot and bringing it back toward us. I activate my item storage skill to seamlessly open up a pocket in space and drop the horns and weapons into it. The 6 broken royal demon cores that stain the bottom of the crater in a massive pool of demonic essence. However, I float down toward them and allow hundreds of thick tendrils of corruption to connect to the densest areas of glyphs and bright purple energy. The instant I touch them, I realize the difference in energy quality in their cores is far more potent than the small drops I managed to drain in the forest. My vision blurs within milliseconds as pure high-quality ether, royal vibrations, and even their primordial aura starts to drain out of their cores and into mine. The outside of these dark corruption vines glows white and purple as they crush thousands of glyphs per second, and information in the form of memories of the past rushes into my mind. I see this same royal demon that was yelling its lungs out in the Creator's legacy temple somewhere else entirely. They're floating in an extremely strange void. I can't tell if it's bright white or pitch black. Depending on the angle these memories view it, the concept of color itself shifts and skews reality in an odd way. The demon sits with its legs crossed and eyes closed, moving its hands at an unfathomable rate. Massive amounts of energy are being used. Both its royal demon core and purple true core are being pushed to the limits, bending reality around it. The celestial energy merged with its demon's core is far more refined than what I saw in the last memories it had. In fact, they're extremely close to the purity in high-quality ether. The hand movements this demon continues to make create symbols in the air, but the vast majority of them just fade away like mist, not doing a thing. It is just meaningless squiggles and lines. However, every few million signs of gibberish that fade away, one holds its shape without destabilizing and starts floating around the demon in circles. Weeks, months, years, millennia, then an untrackable amount of time passes. More and more glyphs stick, and they appear to be new ones that have never been created before. Like the demon is making them up from scratch, creating a new language or style of wielding ether. The glyphs start to work together at times. Some explode and result in failures, but the more that fail, the more data is collected. They begin forming working systems, and chain reactions of glyphs start to replicate and create more all on their own. A beautiful whirlpool of an unfathomable number of high-quality ether commands swirl around this meditating demon, and I feel as though I've just learned with him a massive chunk of this demonic legacy. The demon starts to move its hands again to start another stage of its creation, but my grip on the visions starts to fade. I got lost in the moment, and it feels like I've already absorbed everything from these 6 demon cores. At the reality of an empty crater starting to show itself in front of me, I get one last glimpse of this demon's memories. It is a look into the demon's divine core. Some of the dense purple strands at its center have begun to shimmer with a silver light. 2 hours ago, in the green zone, both Raven and Ari pull a full 5% of the borrowed stats available to them. Bursts of unique noble-grade vibrations resonate with the hints of a Dark Elf and Scarlet Clan Berserker, and both flood through the entire zone. These auras clash with the thousands of high noble demonic vibrations flooding out from the white demons that tear through space from the lower realm. All of the newly renovated citadels have updated ether defense systems, using medium-quality ether to power all of the old arrays and new upgraded versions crafted by the general's use of celestial-grade craftsmanship. Even so, there is an eerie shift in air pressure and total gravity in the green zone that affects every single citizen. The warlords and elites are the only ones other than the generals that can truly understand how intense these auras are through the suppression barriers. The common citizens only know that something is strange. After a zone-wide war ended less than 2 weeks ago, lords have settled back into a new routine, but the fear lingering in the backs of their minds returns at this sensation. I'll cover the groups moving toward Ellipsia. You shield Mensa. Raven calls out through their telepathy link to Ari. She is completely invisible, in her greater battle form, grasping 2 artifact-class soul swords, borrowing the celestial-grade foresight skill to track all of the enemy's paths to intercept them before disaster strikes. On it, Ari replies, already charging up an arrow pulled back by tens of thousands of spirit hands, aimed toward the front of a formation of demons headed their way. He uses celestial-grade foresight as well and finds that there are even more demons tearing through the barrier of the realms near the Grand Citadel's teleport points. It is not nearly as much, roughly 10% of the total volume of enemies, but they are too far away for either of them to fend off without leaving gaps in their current defensive line. The voice of a green-skinned goblin queen sounds out as she is viewing their spectate feeds and sees the problem. I can hold them off. You focus on what's within range. Ava turns to a white griffin, a scarlet berserker, and a few hundred elites. She borrows 5% of stats, and a dense green wave of energy and noble-grade vibrations mirroring the frequency of a light elf erupts around her. Join me if you know your strength. Maintain the Citadel's stability if you believe you would be of better use here. As Ava jumps off the top of the Grand Citadel and flies into the green clouds, the Griffin and Berserker Giant are the only ones that dare to follow. The rest line up around the Citadel's edges and create a secondary barrier around the citizens to lessen the pressure and vibrations leaking through the natural defenses. The strange thing about these demons, even while using foresight on full blast, is that the power of their attacks cannot be predicted. The strength of their vibrations, and their relative speed based on prior movements, is registered. But the symbols that cover their bodies hide all of their internal energy, not showing their demon core or ether purity strength to those who try to discern it. However, this deficiency has its advantages too. The fact that only the demon's high noble vibrations can be sensed gives a very accurate reading on the demon's intentions. There are no external clouds of energy or deceit blocking their minds to show exactly where they're locked on to attack. Each of the three generals is sharing all of their sensory data and has come to find they each have unique vision past even this. Raven's eyes within her pocket stealth dimension pick up on fluctuations in a small amount of Demon's armor where their vibrations are leaking out more than others. At first, she believes it must mean they are stronger, and their wills are too powerful to be held back by these strange defenses. However, as billions of mental simulations pass as she gets closer and closer, the truth becomes clear. The author's narrative has been misappropriated. Report any instances of the story on Amazon. A small amount of these demons have faulty armor. There are tiny microscopic fractures and gaps in the glyphs. No normal noble green true core could ever possibly see so clearly, especially one that has a soul energy core still mostly saturated with low-quality ether. The high-quality ether glyphs are on a level so much higher than anything in this green zone that they should be unbreakable. This is what the Imperials have counted on. This is their strongest army chosen to exterminate all life in the lower zones, even approved by the Overseer as a guaranteed result. But harnessing 5% of stats and mana control from every single link of loyalty on over 70 billion worlds bends the laws of nature. Her mana-based system skills have been artificially boosted to a level where a massive portion of the galaxy's perception is focused in a single mortal's eyes. The first direct hit in this all-out attack on the green zone does not go how the demons expected. Two invisible swords collide with an unsuspecting demon's armor. It does not even feel Raven coming. The green cord demon has its eyes set on the Ellipsia Citadel, marching forward through the air with mindless confidence. Yet, all of a sudden, an enormous burst of mana and noble vibrations slashes through a microscopic crack in this demon's chest plate. A crack that only formed from the hundreds of millions of years that passed while this demon slept in a dormant state in the lower realm. The absurd release of pure mana, replicating the blast of multiple exploding stars in the lower realm, tears open this crack. The tightly organized high-quality glyphs in the demon's armor are released without the proper commands being activated for safe usage, and instead, it senses that an enemy of far greater strength has challenged it. A chain reaction of self-destruct commands completely annihilate the demon trapped within its armor milliseconds later. Raven is still deep within her stealth dimension, but her vision goes bright white, and she can feel the heat of the explosion leaking through, bending space and challenging her unique True Core's ability. At the same time, she begins to hear tens of thousands of level notifications blaring in her inner ear, as she just managed to kill an ancient Imperial soldier. This enormous blast proves her point that they are not so mysterious, and whatever these white armor artifacts are, they can be broken. The demons inside them are not nearly as strong as their gear makes them out to be. This realization is sent to the other generals, the lower realm forces, and it is paired with an old piece of data the Rising Emperor shared in their higher-ups forums. It is of the battle against the Blue Zone's royal family head. He was a shell of a royal underneath that fancy armor, and so these soldiers must be the same. Ares' view of the battlefield is entirely different. When he aims arrows at his targets, a new sensation ripples through his mind. It has only begun to develop recently, as he started training and running tests on the demonic creatures left behind by the high noble demon that used to rule the Mensa Citadel. He has a hard time putting it into words, but when he looks at the vibrations of these approaching demons, he begins to see a black aura of death around some of them. It is lighter, almost gray to those further away, and it becomes darker, pitch black when he points the tip of his arrow at a vital point on certain demons. Seeing what Raven achieved, and its complex breakdown, connects all the dots in his mind. When his first arrow collides with the darkest black cloud in his death vision, it breaks through a microscopic flaw in one of the demon's armor. He had no idea what he was aiming at moments ago, but once another supernova of high-quality ether erupts from a demon being cooked alive within its own faulty armor, it all makes sense. Notifications blare through his mind too, as he reaps the rewards of killing one of the strongest living demons from an ancient era of this galaxy. Ava was slightly nervous at first, as she has the most amount of citizens behind her that need protecting, and has the lowest overall attack power out of all the generals. However, sparkling yellow and white lights begin filling her vision, and a sweet scent fills the air, highlighting weaknesses on certain demons all over the sky that are approaching, and the sensation of what she assumed to be divine luck in past activities. Now, she knows it is some kind of light elven legacy, but it is still strange. When comparing this inheritance she found to the other generals, or even minor inheritances found in the worldwide connectivity system, none of them work quite like hers. She feels a warm aura pushing her to do certain movements, and sometimes it leaks foreign knowledge into her psyche when it needs it most. It's like this inheritance has a consciousness of its own, and always guides her to favorable outcomes when her life is on the line. Ava has become slightly suspicious and has tried to talk to this force over the last few weeks, but it never replies in the way she wishes. Her eyes are covered in this white and yellow light as a technique flows into her mind right before impacting the closest demon. She grits her teeth and swings her hammer across her body, yelling out into the open air, "Fine! I'll accept your gifts again. But when I survive this, I need some answers." A perfect replica of her greater form's green hammer comes bursting out from the swing. It looks like a green hologram was just shot out from its base. Yet around the edges, a white and yellow sparkling glow makes its structural makeup very different than normal mana, ether, or divine threads. The enormous high noble in front of Ava does not even register her as a threat at first. Its only objective was set on the grand citadel behind her. Yet, when this hologram of a hammer collides with the demon's left knee and exploits a half-faded glyph that was woven too hastily to withstand the cold storage it was placed in, the exact same reaction occurs. The Goblin Queen is blinded by the blast of white light, and her consciousness is filled with level-up notifications. Flashes of white light, in the form of luminite-powered teleportation crystals, glow all over the lower realm. At first, it is just parties of elites and high-class monsters from the Galactic Trade Commission deploying teams to scan and scout out all the areas where demons are spotted. No one goes in to attack, as the true power of these strange demons is still unknown. However, as members of the Crimson Army begin to gain insights from the generals in the Green Zone, they begin looking for the same weaknesses. Celestial-grade all-seeing eye and foresight are used to scan their enemies and teleport from solar system to solar system before small weaknesses are spotted. These troops may only be orange cores on average, but the unfathomable amount of mana-based stats flowing through their bodies is enough to disrupt the natural order of the lower realm. When knights unleash all of the borrowed stats they have, many of them are strong enough to destabilize star systems with their own gravity alone. There are millions of white-armored demons, and a handful with the largest chinks in their armor are targeted first. Explosions tear through space as they exploit the exact same strategy, cooking these high noble demons alive within their own armor. Alvaron and Bree begin receiving massive amounts of data from these fights, and the small parties of millions of elites that scan each danger zone now know exactly what to look for. They borrow celestial-grade all-seeing eye skills and share all of their senses through a linked spectate feed with the administrators for them to scan more carefully. Weak points are spotted halfway across the galaxy. Large openings are pinged to the knights, while the smaller fractures and less obvious faded glyph weaknesses are sent to the commanders. Fisher and Lydia do not head toward the obvious targets. They are sent out to fight the opponents that the knights are unable to kill. While anyone with borrowed stats has an overwhelming speed advantage, there is still a level of pure raw combat power that only these two true Yellow Cord commanders can reach. Out of everyone in the lower realm, this blue-eyed water mage and white-haired ice wielder have the most domineering wills of any mana-based fighters. Some elites have unique auras of vibrations as they become the strongest of their race, but none are capable of reaching the level of noble demons. Fisher and Lydia have far surpassed this point, as they are stronger than any noble demon in the Morvale or Vermilion's armies that challenged them over the last few years. When they approach their first battlefield and feel the high noble aura of these mindless imperial husks forced to be soldiers, both wear smirks on their faces, realizing it is not too far off from the strength of their own. Space-bending blue serpents and white tigers dominate star systems as the two ruthlessly begin attacking the weak spots pinged into their minds. Ancient high noble demons explode and die by their hands, causing tens of thousands of level-up notifications to ring in their ears. Instantly, everyone in active battle surpasses level 100,000 and receives simultaneous notifications to rank up when they are ready. The heat waves from the blasts after their deaths are quite strange. While they kill the demons that have been soulbound to this armor, a large amount of the glyphs being thrust through the commanders and knights actually don't harm them at all. They phase through them without affecting their greater forms or energy cores at all. The only harmful material they have to shield themselves from is extremely refined low-quality ether that is blended within their demons' cores. Some of them have pockets of celestial energy, as back in the era when these demons were born, large amounts of the upper realm's energy were still spread throughout this plane of existence. Stolen novel. Please report. It has degraded slightly but is still far more refined than what the soul energy purity is in any of the commanders or knights' cores. There are 2 commanders that are not actively battling but instead studying the data that is taken in by Bree and Alvaron, and used in a much different way. Monk and Luna are studying the physical makeup of the demons themselves, and this strange armor that covers them and bonds to their souls. These symbols, they're very strange. Monk mutters to himself, watching slow-motion reruns of the shockwaves that disperse this high-quality ether into the air after every demon's death. Luna blinks, and all of her demonic beast eyes blink in unison with her. When looking through data, and even going to battlefields for a few seconds at a time at random herself, this commander gets higher-quality visuals that peer deep into the intricacies of the demonic creatures than anyone else. When she returns to the update with Monk, she sees him deep in thought, continuing to mutter to himself, and asks, "What have you found? I can't understand a thing about these demons. They're nothing like the old armies we fought off during the realm wave." Monk's eyes are wide. He doesn't even look her way while rambling back. The demons themselves, they're no different. They may have a slightly stronger talent base, but even still, it's that armor that makes them so powerful. It's unlike anything I've seen. It must be the demons' language. They never left any written text in the lower realm for me to study, but it is not entirely original. I can tell many of the core meanings of these words are taken from the originator's text. I cannot fathom the true intricacies of what all these commands do, but I can comprehend what the larger, more simple glyphs mean on their surface. Whatever this is, it is a cheap copy. But a copy of what? While their research continues, thousands of high noble demons are slaughtered one by one, and the charge forward from these mindless monsters doesn't seem to slow at all. It's like they don't even notice they're being counterattacked. However, in the demonic realm, 3 elite demons that float above all of their other mindless troops do, in fact, see what is happening. They are seemingly the only ones conscious enough to speak to each other, and have independent movements. This is an interesting development. Our scans were faulty. The data coming back now reads that the 90% drop in perceived power across the galaxy has been reverted back to a natural state. Another demon responds, "I don't believe it was our equipment. There is a force in the lower realm that has somehow gained enough influence in this era to manipulate the masses on a large scale." The first demon nods slowly, while the third still sits in silence for a few seconds. His eyes are flashing white, and his armor ripples with high-quality glyphs while he peers through the eyes of every demonic soldier moving out on their orders. "You're right. There is a strong force still at play. They've somehow managed to find the weaknesses in some of our oldest troops. The ones that received our first versions of armor from the king." He pauses again, viewing the few thousand battles that have transpired so far, then nods with confidence. They are only proficient in high-potency mana attacks. Over 97% of soldiers have armor strong enough for none of their strongest attacks to make it through. None would even manage to stand in the presence of our auras if we let them attack us with everything they have. I'll have the elites stationed out in deep space take care of the pests. Their attack strategy is very predictable. "Good." Both of the demons reply, then stare down again. In a full stealth cloak, using 1% of borrowed stats, Pluto hovers even higher above them, not daring to make a move out of line yet. He's been collecting as much data as he can, sending the movements and visuals of the demonic soldiers here back to the other admins. He even sends this recorded conversation back to alarm them that certain higher-ranked forces in this army know exactly what is happening. Not only are they more intelligent, but Pluto can tell that these 3 demons are far different from the rest in more ways than one. Not only are they not in any symmetric formation, but their vibrations are extremely strange. It is like invisible pockets of aura are covering the outer layer of their greater forms and weapons. It feels like it is dampening the small amounts of readings he can already see, yet simultaneously, it feels extremely dangerous. The invisible substance does not produce any gravity waves, nor heat or even noise, cannot even be recorded. All of the messages Pluto sends to Bree asking about this aura come back with questions and follow-ups asking for close-ups on what area he's talking about. Primordial aura cannot be scanned with the technology available. It can only be perceived by the soul. Despite no physical proof, this information is shared with every scanning team and fighter that teleports across the galaxy. Soon enough, notifications ring back in the admin's ears, as more reports of this strange invisible aura are located on a small number of irregular demons. None of them have bothered to step in and attack any solar systems yet, they only watch from afar. The instant everyone begins to look for these strange outliers of demonic soldiers with invisible auras is the same instant that they all begin to move from their positions. At first, they were only watching from stable areas of deep space or appearing at random battlefields, but never making any hostile moves. In the total ranks of millions of Imperial soldiers, there are less than 100 of these strange elites, but once spotted it is clear to see they have all teleported to the battlefields of the knights and commanders that are killing their troops. They do not have instant teleportation crystals. Instead, they burst through deep space using high-quality ether glyphs to propel them forward with reality-bending speed. They are capable of crossing large percentages of the galaxy in mere seconds. Yet, they only move in straight lines, and their bodies become consumed with layers of white glyphs, allowing them to phase right through entire stars. It is like a manual and less instant version of a dungeon walker jump, but recreated with ether and played out on a galactic scale. Many of these elite soldiers, when they arrive at their destinations, take up to a full minute to adapt and adjust to their new locations. The glyphs around their bodies spin rapidly, and their eyes look blank. The cooldown time on this ability lasts far longer than the travel time itself. Many seem to have predicted this side effect and have transported themselves to star systems where they predict the knights and commanders will move next. They have the data too and know which soldiers have more faulty armor. Plus, it is quite easy to study the past few thousand battles already and see what pattern of attack the humans have been implementing. The first to see one close-up and personal is Fisher. Just after detonating another demon that had a small hairline fracture in his chest plate, the water-wielding swordsman breaks his next luminite crystal that is traded through the worldwide connectivity interface from Bree, and he disappears to find himself 29 star systems away surrounding a bright yellow sun. Instantly, he locks onto his target and compares the data to what he sees and spots the faded glyph right near the back of this mindless demonic soldier's neck. Another easy kill, he whispers, propelling himself forward and charging up his blade to one-shot this enemy. Yet, once he comes within about 100 million kilometers, a very strange aura pours through his senses. Nothing in the actual divine thread count or gravity of the atmosphere in this star system shifts, but every single one of his danger senses blares in his mind. His vibrations all pull back into his body, and he does not follow through with his strike at all. Instead, he makes a 90-degree turn away from the trajectory he was headed. Fisher has no idea what he's feeling but knows it must be related to all the alerts and warnings of irregular demons that have been coming through lately. In the next moment, the demonic soldier he was tasked to take out explodes on its own. It happens in an extremely strange manner, with a perfect hole pulsing through its chest, like its body and cores have been deleted from reality. There is an explosion of white energy that fills the entire star system with light moments after, but this water mage still senses a threat coming his way. His eyes open wide as all of the energy in the air is avoiding a single invisible orb that rockets toward him. That's it. Primordial aura. He recalls the data shared of Jay and Samir's battle, and desperately tries to dodge this attack because he's certain with all of the stats in this entire galaxy, he couldn't survive whatever this is in his current state. Fisher's heightened instincts in this moment make out another celestial body in the massive explosion of glyphs that is repelling the energy wave, and it is in the shape of another demon. Its entire body is covered in a bubble of this primordial aura. The creature looks at him with a cold glare and holds a pointed spear in his hand. Millions of glyphs are swirling around it, and the density of invisible aura is building up around its tip. No noise is heard and no recoil at all is visible, but the glyphs do flash and spin faster every time an attack is sent out over the next few seconds. Over a dozen orbs of invisible aura start to fly through the air, blocking off all areas of escape. Every foresight reading Fisher sees is of himself being torn apart and evaporated by these waves of unblockable aura. The blue-eyed mage crushes a luminite crystal and teleports to another planet 14 star systems away. Reading on Amazon or a pirate site. This novel is from Royal Road. Support the author by reading it there. We have an emergency. These irregulars, they're attacking, and they're too strong. I can't even begin to fight back in my current state, he remarks while sending this footage to the admins. A streak of white light appears at the other side of this desolate red sun star system, leaving a trail across the dark void of deep space from where he came. The demon with a spear appears but takes nearly half a minute to cool down and begin approaching Fisher. In this time, he tries to find any weaknesses, but this elite's armor is flawless. There isn't a single glyph or array out of place. The primordial aura surrounding him is like an additional defensive system. Thousands of full-powered blue serpents filled with soul energy, true yellow divine threads, and noble-grade vibrations are sent at this demon while it is frozen and gaining its bearings. Yet, everything is devoured by the primordial aura. All of his attacks disappear into thin air and never even make it to hit his armor. The instant this demon's eyes regain their life and look his way, Fisher crushes another luminite crystal to get to safety. He stares down at the rank up notification in his status, breathing heavily, then sends a telepathic message to Lydia. I'm going to need some cover, a distraction long enough for me to rank up. I'm against an enemy I can't defeat. Messages come back in Fisher's mind, showing Lydia's last minute or so, blipping through the galaxy running from an axe wielder that has the exact same primordial aura flowing around his body. I'd love to help if I wasn't in the same position as you. All of the Crimson Army start sending visuals of these same demons chasing them around to every new star system they try to save from the marching Imperial Guards. Instantly, no one is able to defend their attacks any longer. The only warriors capable of taking the Imperial soldiers down are being hunted by the elites. In the Green Zone, the front line of demonic forces is brutally killed. Hundreds of explosions light up the entire Green Zone with high-quality residue and fractured glyphs. They all burst through every single citadel, like enormous holograms. The low-quality ether, demonic essence, and small portions of celestial energy that were inside the demon's cores, however, all collide with the ether defense arrays around these floating cities. It makes them all shake, and many citizens pass out from the pressure that leaks through. The only citadel that isn't affected by these waves is the fortress. It stays completely still, like nothing out of the ordinary is happening around it. Even the high-quality glyphs shatter into pieces when they hit its ancient defensive arrays. The three generals that are deep in their fights take advantage of the massive amounts of ether in the air. Those that they can absorb become extremely potent in the air, filling their soul energy cores with millions of units of extremely refined low-quality ether per second, and with small amounts of celestial energy in the mix, it begins converting their cores to become entirely medium-quality ether. All of the borrowed celestial grade skills begin working with far greater efficiency, and their victory seems like it will be quite easy. Even the White Griffin and Zacian activate their greater forms and achieve a few kills of their own, attacking the most fragile Imperial demons. All 5 attackers have surpassed level 100,000 and have glowing, rank-up options available for themselves too, but they are still in the heat of battle. Raven is the deepest into enemy lines. Ari attacks from a distance, and those from the Grand Citadel are not as aggressive as her. This dual-wielding swordswoman has killed over 100 Imperial demons herself. The raw strength and speed difference is far greater than those fighters in the lower realm, and the manual tear through space to get here has damaged the armor of many more demons than below as well. Almost a full third of their army has some kind of defect that can be exploited. The shockwaves of high-quality glyphs from their dying kin also send them flying through the air, forcing them to correct their positioning after every blast. The glyphs do not phase through them. Some even break apart, and their armor self-destructs itself if the kills are close enough together. However, Many demons still have flawless armor, and the battle plan for killing them is still unknown. Full-powered attacks have been tested on them, and none have even made a scratch or moved a glyph out of place. However, after attacking them, the mindless demons do not fight back. They just march forward like the generals and elites are of no threat. Seems there is no danger at all, until Raven's instincts begin screaming into her mind to run away. She is in her stealth dimension, completely invisible, and on her way toward the next demon with a small armor fracture in his right knee. Yet, she feels like there is a horrible wave of fire coming toward her back. There is no actual heat and no bends in the atmosphere, but it is just her brain making up emotions to deal with the invisible and unsensible danger approaching. With foresight enabled, she starts to see an endless amount of gruesome deaths she's about to experience no matter what path she takes. Her stealth dimension should make her untouchable. Not even a close-up full-powered explosion from these dying demons hurt a hair on her, despite being inside their bodies during the blast. Yet, visions of enormous holes deleting her from existence play over and over with no options of saving her in sight. She manages to turn her head in the direction it is coming from and sees the source. It's one of the anomalies that everyone has begun to find in the lower realm. They are managing to buy themselves time by star system hopping, but that isn't exactly an option for Raven right now. She sees possibilities of using the fast travel perk available for generals and teleporting away from danger to a far side of the zone, but that wouldn't last for long. She could easily be followed. She even begins to think of teleporting up to the Cyan Zone where Abby's fast travel location is available, but is unaware of the risks of hopping zones like that without preparation. Not to mention, if they left this place now, it would have no one to defend it. Hundreds of millions of lords would lose their lives, and the mana-based forces in the upper realm would be obliterated without question. She tries to link her mind to Ari and Ava, but is surprised to find they both send out a probe for a connection at the same time. The visuals of elite Imperial demons that are clearly intelligent and unlike the rest come into each other's minds. Every single one of them is being attacked with primordial aura right now and has no logical path to victory. Every scenario that runs through the generals, commanders, and knights' minds all results in them losing their battles. No matter what they do, it seems hopeless. This invisible energy is far too strange. Alvaron processes all of their battle information and scans from the hours teleporting from star system to star system. Then, every single piece of footage the Rising Emperor has stored from his last battles to try and figure out a solution. The ancient True Chord Mind Flayer, with processing speed faster than any mortal in the lower realm, uses 1% of the borrowed stats from 70 billion worlds, yet even they see no logical way out. The only way Jay defeated Samir when he used this power was to develop it himself. There is no counter you can use to block or attack this primordial aura, but there is a way for you to rank up and give yourselves more time to plan. Alvaron's voice rings in all of their ears, showing the visuals of Jay fighting Muriel and the moments before his rank up to unlock his sacred body and celestial energy. I have no visuals of him inside, but it's even a grade higher now. Activate Celestial Grade Mind Palace, and find a way to win. These are the ancient administrator's last words as every fighter's eyes go white, slowing their perceived time down by millions of times while stepping into the depths of their minds to rank up, and each search for their own ways to win this fight. At the same time, in the Cyan Zone, an event out of the ordinary is progressing. After Abby and Seraphel killed Lucian Morvale and absorbed all of the energy from the demonic citizens of this zone, the two legacies they have accepted have been reacting in an uncontrollable reaction. The White Wyvern that left his legacy behind in the Green Zone for Seraphel left all of his knowledge and celestial energy to the Inheritor. However, there was a requirement for its final activation, one that could only be released once the soul contract made with Lucian and the White Wyvern was fully destroyed. It is what doomed the Wyvern race in the first place. Killing this demon, defeating it in a battle of soul strength, and absorbing all of its life essence finally releases this final seal. While Seraphel's celestial body is normally bright blue, with water trailing behind him, this entire body shines with a magnificent white light. There are still deep blue eyes piercing through it, but his celestial body grows extremely large, attracting massive amounts of divine threads and raw medium quality ether that floats in the clouds in the air. his royal vibrations, gravity presence, budding primordial aura that flows out from his cores, and presence on reality spreads to the far edges of this zone. Every drop of energy in the Scion zone is being pulled in toward him. Seraphel flies around in extremely wide circles, around the trunk of an enormous manifestation of a tree. While he drains large amounts of energy from the air, it's nowhere near as much as the flourishing leaves and the roots that begin to grow from this tree. Their soul energy cores have a deep bond, so the energy is shared to an extent. However, Abby is no longer in a conscious state to process everything that is happening. She is floating in her fully ranked-up immortal healer's celestial body in the center of this massive tree, which is tied to her soul with billions of strands of primordial aura, but it is definitely a separate entity. The royal vibrations of an ancient dryad ripple through the zone, and the roots of this tree begin spreading down to cover the bottom of the zone. Its branches bloom so quickly and violently that the billions of kilometers between the Scion city and the old palace where Lucian used to live are completely consumed by this tree's presence. Every single structure in the Scion zone is obliterated. The sounds of Seraphel's primal roars echo through the zone, and Abby's eyes burn bright white as she starts seeing more and more visions of the past from her inheritance. Unlawfully taken from Royal Road, this story should be reported if seen on Amazon. She begins seeing bright white trees and endless forests of them. There are many women and men that look very similar to her, with green eyes and hair. All of them have large greater forms, with vines and leaves trailing off their bodies. They're all weaving strange patterns with their hands, siphoning their ether into high-quality glyphs. She recognizes some from her staff and begins to learn many more the longer she watches these dryads existing in this beautiful forest. All of the trees are enormous. Just one of them is bigger than this entire Scion zone, and the energy inside them is unfathomable to someone so many zones below at first. Yet, these memories pour into her consciousness and subconscious, making her fully understand the depth of their power, and it begins to feel not so unbelievable. Through the eyes of the memory holder, they pass through many invisible walls and thousands of primordial trees. However, once the memories feel fuzzy, like they're about to end, Abby sees the most enormous primordial tree in the purple zone. The eyes of the memory holder slowly look up at it. Its trunk is quadrillions of kilometers wide. It looks like all of the suns in the entire galaxy could fit inside it. The primordial trees that surround this monstrous existence all feel like twigs after looking at this immaculate feat of nature. Just as the memory holder raises their hands and begins to connect with this tree, like it is its owner, Abby's eyes return to their natural green state and she breathes in sharply as reality flows back into her mind. At the same time, a very ominous cracking sound echoes through the entire zone. It comes from both above and below. Abby's tree roots have spread across the entirety of the Scion zone's floor, and its branches and leaves have become so dense with energy and grown so high up into the air that the pressure is starting to crack through the realm above as well. Green and dark blue divine light start to leak into the Scion zone. In the purple zone, I've just finished absorbing all of the 6 outer guards' demonic essence as well as their high-quality ether. Once the final visions of the demon that created their race's legacy fade, where I catch a glimpse of him beginning to compress his purple divine threads into silver light, I lose access to the memories of the past. However, an enormous amount of new glyph information has been infused into my mind. It's sealed and enhanced even further once all of my corruption flows back into my royal demon's core, and the pulse of pure and fresh high-quality ether ripples through my soul and mirrors onto Maria's. It makes the small amount of energy we drained from the puddles on the roots and trees a drop in the ocean of our power. So many glyphs light up all over our bodies, and they burn much brighter than the light glow they had before. My medium-quality ether becomes so refined, I feel like it's on the verge of compressing to the smooth high-quality pools that these demons used. It would make our glyph summoning seamless, yet there is still some internal barrier like a bottleneck that needs a larger force to break through. My first thought goes to finding more outer guards. When I raise my hands and turn to Maria, I feel like we could summon hundreds of thousands of glyphs right now. It would be slow, and nowhere near the volume of billions per attack I witnessed Ulgar summon to fight off those demons. However, I have a far deeper understanding of glyphs and arrays now and can see that one of our legacy's glyphs is far stronger than thousands of these black ogres. Even the demon's glyphs are different. They all have very similar characteristics to the legacy printed on mine and Maria's souls, but there is something very different about them. None of the languages are the same, yet the arrays all function in very similar ways, with very accurate replications of their core functions. It's like the entire demonic language is derived from this legacy itself, like an extremely accurate counterfeit version. My eyes widen as I begin piecing more bits of this mystery together, and my vision starts to crackle and burn with golden and silver light. The ringing in my ears is starting again, and I even feel my sword vibrating in my soul. Yet, instead of fully giving in to this memory-wiping phenomena that I can never fend off, I stand my mental ground. My mind is starting to reach a maturity point where it feels like I might actually have a chance at beating it. I try to fight back and push through to see what I've just remembered that is trying to leave my mind so desperately. All of the glyphs on my body start to vibrate with hot light, and my primordial aura bubble increases in size again, multiple times over. I focus all of my vibrations, ether, and mental focus on pushing this golden and silver light back even a single second. My eyes flicker white, and I see a familiar scene. It's of a demon flying on the back of a golden dragon over thousands of primordial trees. Before, I knew this demon felt familiar, but now I recognize it as the same one in the memories of the demon's legacy. He is the same one who created the whirlwind of glyphs in an unknown realm. Yet now, I see him here in the primordial garden, flying somewhere in a hurry. I don't know why or where he's going, but I sense it's urgent, and he's filled with a desire to kill and fight someone. When his view pans up from the endless trees below, I see a magnificent sight. There is a monumental force of nature I can only describe as the tree of life. It is thousands of times wider than the largest tree in this forest, and when this demon looks up to the sky, its branches fade away further than his vision. The primordial aura that pours out of this tree is unlike anything I've ever imagined. My senses aren't limited while seeing through a memory of the past, so I can feel its immensity. It makes whatever stares into it feel like nothing but a sapling, even a seed that has not yet bloomed. Despite this, I can feel the intent in this demon's vibrations. It dares to challenge this entity. It even believes that it can win. A sharp pressure starts to creep into my mind, and these memories begin to become clouded by a silver and golden light around the edges of my consciousness. I fight back and look deeper into the enormous primordial tree, and even see the figure of a bright green woman that appears to be stepping out from its trunk. Her body looks like a hologram, sparkling with white and yellow light. Her true core is a deep purple color, but there are fragments of silver threads flickering inside of it. When the demon holding these memories swoops down toward the base of the tree, I see his whole body covered in glyphs, and his purple core looks the same, shimmering with flickers of silver threads inside it too. Both of them hold royal vibrations, but they clash with each other on a whole new level. It can only be described as high royal vibrations. Their primordial auras are so rich and domineering, they fill the atmosphere further than I can sense in the memories all throughout this zone. My mind is pulled out of this trance once the auras collide, and I cannot withstand the information any longer. I can feel the rest of the memories play out in my subconscious, where they must have battled, but all of it is burned away into a blur. When I come to and look around, my eyes instantly lock with Maria's, and I see a large amount of source resin flowing through them. All of her energy pathways are full and sparkling. Even her greater form refracts light to create rainbow sparkles that dance. For some reason, the timid nature of this resin has shifted. It dances around with pride, even sticking onto some of the glyphs that glow on the outside of her soul. When I look away, I start to feel the presence of the primordial trees again, but they don't feel as intimidating. After seeing 1,000s of times larger, these saplings feel very approachable. With the increase in my glyphs proficiency and refinement of our ether pools, I reflexively activate my astral form. Maria mirrors me out of instinct, and we both begin pulling far more purple divine threads into our bodies and expand our reach by thousands of times. Without releasing my sacred body, I am still hardly even visible compared to the two monsters behind us. However, this shift increases our senses drastically. Information about the forest around us pours in, and my mind seeps into the primordial trees. It's no longer completely overwhelming to pour my thoughts all the way through their trunks and come out the other side. The intimidating primordial aura they give off is not out of anger or a wish to exert dominance on us. It is just their natural state. In fact, once I truly start to feel the souls inside these trees, I feel sadness. Each one of them is slightly different, like they're worn out, tired, waiting for something or someone, and there is a very faint sense of dwindling hope. When I try to talk with them, sending out telepathy probes, nothing comes back. It's like trying to talk with my dormant sword. In the background of my senses, I hear Vardon speaking in a low tone. Impossible. More of their legacy was awakened by demonic glyphs. Ulgar, who are these humans? I don't know. But look, they hold astral forms like ours. They are on our side. Both the fiery mammoth and black ogre look down at the glyphs of a partially awakened legacy all over our bodies in confusion. Yet, I can tell their perception abilities aren't as great as mine. When I turn back away from the trees and toward them, I reply with a word of reassurance. I understand your concerns, but Ulgar, your prediction about our glyphs being an old legacy is true. It's one that came from far before the Dryads. The only reason we're able to stimulate part of it from the demon's glyphs is because the demon's legacy was copied from ours. The two ancient monsters look at each other, and with my improved senses, I even feel a warm streak of White Griffin's aura watching from high above in the sky. Vardon speaks first. Then how did you improve from intercepting my aura upon our first meeting? I sigh and look down to my chest. I would show you if I could, but my soul sword is not answering my calls at the moment. It triggered a manual upgrade in order to absorb some artifacts that were greater than its capabilities at the time. One of which was an amplifier from the Red Hydra's race. It reacted to your aura, so I learned by proxy. The mammoth grunts but seems satisfied. However, Ulgar interjects. I am curious then, how could you have interpreted the Black Ogre clan's glyphs and even the Elven Awakening artifact, and the glyphs from the ascended insects and lizards, or even the glyphs coming off the primordial trees themselves? Resonating with one or maybe two would be impressive, but it is like you are connected to every legacy. I think deeply to myself, and begin bouncing questions back and forth with Maria through a telepathy link. At first we surmise maybe it has to do with all of the races my links of loyalty are connected to, or possibly more artifacts that my sword has devoured. However, without my soul's interference, Maria can interpret these glyphs too. It has to be because of that legacy, but I answer after a long sigh. I don't know. It's possible the legacy we found is connected to them in some way too. You said it yourself, you've never seen any evidence of races before the Dryads with your own eyes. If this is the originator's legacy, then I have no knowledge or proof to rely on either. Vardon's eyes open wide. You're carrying an originator's legacy? The ground shakes with excitement as his rust-colored aura floods out uncontrollably. I raise both my hands, and Maria does too. We push streams of red and blue, extremely refined celestial energy through a few more compression arrays, and thousands of perfectly formed glyphs begin flooding out from our palms. A perfect layered wall of protection glyphs rises in front of us, and blocks the intense shockwave of rust-colored aura, pushing it off to the sides like we're parting a raging river. The moment Vardon realizes his mistake, he pulls his aura back in. This was at least 100 times more powerful than the aura felt when we first met, yet only a small layer of the front of the array we formed even cracked. Once the atmosphere calms down, we both mimic the barrier's reversal arrays and break down all of the glyphs we just summoned into tiny pieces, then uncompress them before letting them flood back into our ether pools. The reversal process takes almost 5 full seconds, far longer than the near-instant activation. However, Vardon and Ulgar are speechless once again. A perfect reversal. There isn't a drop of ether left behind. Maria shrugs at Ulgar's remark, then looks over to Vardon with a glare. All that because we potentially hold a legacy from an ancient race? I don't know if we even do for sure, and neither does Jay. If we find out, you'll know just as soon as we do. We just made it to this zone hours ago, and need to awaken our glyph imprints as fast as possible before the Imperials really find us. I doubt those guards are anywhere near the ears or eyes of the family head. It'd be convenient if our allies didn't kill us first. She ends this with a smirk. I nod and turn back away from the barrier entrance we came from. Yeah, close call with the outburst there. But I still have to thank you for the backup when Ulgar was fighting before. I don't know if you can tell, but we based our shielding barriers off yours. This proud mammoth can't believe he's being talked to like this by a pair of humans. His aura starts to fluctuate with a mixture of anger, surprise, and disdain. Yet, Ulgar's laugh breaks the tension. They're right. Come on. A few outer guards getting killed won't set off any major alarms. But when a cleanup team comes and finds their essence, cores, and weapons are missing, they will know something is up. We have to act fast. If this was what they had waiting for us at the entrance, once we get near the actual domain I'm aiming for, well, you two better get more proficient at those shielding arrays. My hands tingle with the heat from summoning the most amount of active glyphs I ever have, and I already feel more experienced with a million other possibilities running through my mind. I just nod and look off where Ulgar's body is turning. The next time we see another outer guard, I think we're going to be able to do a lot more than defend.